Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Living 4D with Paul Chek. And today, my guest is Nate Ortiz. Our topic is the wounded healer. I think you're going to find Nate's story fascinating. I know I sure as hell do. And we're going to get into Nate's story and how he actually went from some really unpleasant circumstances, but used his mind very productively to create a real successful career guiding people back to health. So welcome, Nate.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Nate is a Chek professional. You're an HLC3, right?
Yes.
Yeah, HLC3 and exercise coach?
I didn't do the exercise coach yet because I just came out of doing all the Bachelor of Science of Movement Science.
Right.
So as soon as I came out, I was really hungry for the holistic coaching.
Right.
I was like, I got to get that. So
good. Well, when you're ready, it's all there. I'll take you far beyond your bachelor's degree. I promise you that.
I'm pretty sure you will.
Nate, I listened to your podcast with Sarah Rose on the Highest Self podcast, which was a good podcast. You did a phenomenal job of expressing yourself. So I thought it would be fun to begin with to have you tell the story of your childhood and the circumstances that you came up in, and ultimately, how you ended up being a student of the Chek Institute.
I mean, I kind of came into this world facing challenges. When my mother was pregnant with me, she was hooked on heroin at the time. And when she had given birth to me, I wasn't allowed to actually leave the hospital for the first couple of months because they were rehabbing my liver and my body to bring out the drugs that were in my body.
Yeah.
And there were a couple of times where they didn't think I was actually going to make it. So it got to the point where my parents actually, my mom was on the streets, my dad was a drug dealer, my mom's a drug addict. And when it was time for me to go home, nobody was actually available to pick me up.
Wow.
So they called the emergency contact, which was my grandmother. And my grandmother came and got me. And, my mother's a white woman, my father's a black man. And this is at the time where it wasn't as popular as it still can be struggles today, but it was my parents went through a struggle being with each other because of making a biracial baby. So when it's time to come get me, my grandmother came to get her brown grandchild. And when it was time to sign me out, since my father wasn't there to actually give me his, sign the birth certificate, I couldn't get the last name Turner. So my mother was actually still married when she had me with her, with my father, but she divorced, but didn't officially divorce. I ended up with the last name Ortiz, which is a huge part of my story because my upbringing was challenging because my parents, my dad was a drug dealer, my mom was a drug addict, but I was already not sure who I was as far as not blending in as a child. I would go to the black community and I was not black enough to be black. And there's a lot of bullying that actually goes on in the black community when you're not black. Everything that you do that's good is because you're light skinned or, it's an excuse on, you don't get your credit there and you don't fit in. But then when I went with my white family, the good thing is that most of them were mixed with some type of Hispanic. But I never felt like I was black and I never felt like I was white and I never felt like I was Spanish either. So I had to find myself at a young age. And, the last name Ortiz made people think I was Spanish. So when I was, growing up, I grew up in Jersey City, New Jersey. And at the time I was always moving. We were always trying to find a place to live. My parents were on Section 8 and being on Section 8 in welfare, you basically move a lot because you're looking for the next cheap apartment that you can afford. But at the same time, my mom was on a program for drug addiction, and my father was a drug addict who had a warrant for his arrest. So my dad couldn't get us an apartment when we were kids. I couldn't really live with him because he was on a run his whole life. And my mother, she'll do good for about a couple months. We'll be living at a particular place, and then before you know it, she's not showing up for her meetings, and then Section 8's taken away from us, so I'm living with grandma again. So I actually grew up in the projects downtown Jersey City. I grew up right on the Hudson River with the view of New York City. And I say when I was about like 5, 6 years old, things got a little more rough. My mom's addiction started to increase to the point where she became abusive. It was times where I would just get beat with bats. She even tried to stab me a couple times. And
Wow.
yeah, my mom was very, very abusive, and she took her anger out on us, my brother, my brothers and my sister.
Oh, you have a brother and a sister
Yeah,
too?
so my mom had 2 kids before she had me, and they were Hispanic. And then she had me and then 2 other boys with my father. And there were times when we grew up, they kind of segregated the house. So we were so poor, we had no food, right? When the first of the month came, my mom took that money. She took the food stamp money and then made a way to get cash for it. Usually what they do is if you get $1,000 in food stamp money, you trade the $1,000 in food stamp money for $500 cash. So you're able to make a trade. So we'll go hungry for the whole month. And
Jeez. What did you get by on? You can't
my
not
father.
eat. Oh, okay.
So what we had to do is we had to learn on how to find dad. We couldn't be with dad all day because we had cops following us around Jersey City because they knew that we were going to see dad. So we had to play little tricks. There were times that we'll meet dad at Burger King on Wednesday, and dad will come by. You don't know what kind of car he's coming by in. He drops the money off. He told us he loved us, and then he went back out. So that was my whole life. So we had to make $10 stretch for 2-3 days at a time with 2 little, my little brother. I had another little brother, but my parents couldn't get custody of him because of their record becoming worse as I was growing up. So it was to a point where around 5-6 years old, I started seeing abusement get really bad in my household. And to tell you the truth, I was so traumatized at the point where my memory, even as a child, I couldn't remember what happened to me. So I'll go to school and teachers would ask, well, how'd you get that bruise on you? Or, why didn't you show up yesterday? And I literally couldn't remember at the time.
Mm-hmm. That's PTSD.
Exactly. It's very bad PTSD. So as I was continuously going, I struggled with self-identity, but I also struggled with learning disabilities because when I was born, since the drugs were in my system, they created issues when it came down to the development of my brain. So they used to tell my dad that I would never be able to live without an assistance. So when I was a kid, they tried to put me in special ed with an assistant teacher, and they even thought that I was gonna be autistic to the point where I'm gonna need assistance for the rest of my life.
Well, they screwed Dad up, didn't they?
Yeah.
Good thing.
Yeah, my father, he didn't want to accept that. He did not want to accept that at all. So my father would, anytime I spoke, he'll stop me since I was a kid. And he used to say, Nate, slow down your words and pronounce this word right. And I used to feel very annoyed anytime he used to do that. Because he used to be in front of like everybody in the neighborhood, right? Like I said, my dad was a drug dealer. So when he's speaking to me in front of all the drug dealers and their kids. And I was already embarrassed that I couldn't read or write. So when I spoke, he would stop everything he's doing. It can be a birthday party. And everybody's looking at me. My dad's making me repronounce the word that I messed up. As if he knew that I wanted to be like a speaker growing up. It was just like a magical thing. I felt like my dad was secretly just a wizard that was put in my life to guide me to be the man I am today. Because even when the times were going bad in my life, my dad was the one that trained my brain. He never allowed my brain to accept the fact that this is really bad as it is. He used to tell me, he calls me Pa. He said, Pa, someone out there got it worse than you right now.
Mm-hmm.
We got food on our back. We found a way to get food in our mouth, and we got a roof over our head. We're blessed. And it was to the point where through my childhood, as things got worse, my mom, her drug addiction was getting worse until my sister had kids. As soon as my sister had kids, she had something to change for. She became a grandmother. Everything was going good. But then it trickled down to my sister having drug addiction.
Oh, wow.
So my sister starts losing her mind. She had a baby, had epilepsy. And then my sister was charged with the murder of her daughter, which was my niece. So my sister had 2 boys and a girl. One was 3.5. Then we had, I think, a 2-year-old and then a newborn. And my sister killed a newborn. So every day I would wake up, I watch my nephews, and then after school, I'll take care of my nephews. I was around like 9-10 years old at this time. And now the state of New Jersey one day came, took my sister, took her boyfriend. My brother assaulted the cameraman from the news channel. The New York News kept on coming to the house. My brother went to jail. My mother relapsed on drugs. Didn't see her for about 2 months after that. And then the state of New Jersey took my nephews away. So I woke up and everything was taken away from me. So it was to the point where I had to figure out what I was going to do with my life. Because I saw
that's an early start on that one.
Exactly. I was like, I have to do something with this. So every day I would go to school and everybody in the school knew what happened. It was all over the news. It was breaking news. It was on newspapers. So people didn't want to come near me, or people thought I was like a part of a killer family and all these, weird things. But I had this one counselor. His name was Mr. Fernandez. And he was this Cuban guy. He used to wear collar shirts with a gold chain. He had his hair coming out. And he was someone that people were intimidated by.
Mm-hmm.
And he came up to me and said, you got to come to my office after school. You have to speak to me. And I told him, I'm not speaking to you. Because my whole life I kept these things that were going home, basically going on at home, a secret. I don't want nobody to know I'm going through this. Everybody thought that I was this kid that just had some learning disabilities. And I actually transformed my pain into laughter, and I became a class clown, and I wanted to motivate my friends, but nobody knew I was going through this at home. So one day, after like 2 weeks of him harassing me, I'm like, look, talk to my little brother. He needs it. I don't need it. And because where I'm from is, it's you're soft if you go talk to somebody.
Mm-hmm.
It's not something that is normal in my neighborhood. Like, oh, you have to go see a therapist. Like, oh, you're gonna see, and then you get joked on. So at the time, I'm like, I'm not gonna see no counselor. And then I remember one day I went home. We had no food, we had no cable, and then I went to go take a shower and the hot water is off. I can't find my mom. My dad, he's trying to figure out how to make money to feed me, and he's on the streets. And I sat down and I'm like, all right, if I don't do something about this in my life, then I'm going to end up like my sister, like my brother, or I'm going to be a drug dealer. And I used to think my dad was the smartest man I've ever met in my life. And it used to upset me. I'm like, this man is the smartest man. I would go to school, I'll learn something about science, and I'll try to come tell him when I saw him. He'll tell me everything about it. But then he'll tell me about the law, history, how doorknobs are made. And I used to say, Dad, you're the smartest man I've ever met in my life. In the back of my mind, I used to say, I want to be like my dad, but I want to do it legally.
Yeah.
That was the goal. That's until I met you, by the way. I was happy when I came across your work and I told my dad about you, because my whole life, my goal was to try to find someone smarter than him.
Oh, well, maybe I'm not.
I was like, Dad, I found somebody. So I came home and I took a piece of paper. I had this notebook, and on that piece of paper, I said, okay, on the top of the piece of paper, I said, how can I escape Jersey City? Question mark. So I started to think, well, maybe I can become a teacher. Maybe I can do this. Maybe I can do that. So then I set out the goal. And then after I set out the goal, I took like a ladder and I made a little ladder of steps that need to be taken care of, or I need to take to be able to make it there. So one of the first things I said was like, okay, how can I go to a high school that can avoid these gangs in this neighborhood? Because all my friends are in gangs and I don't want to, people were getting stabbed every day. I was like, okay, how do I do that? I want to go to private school. Okay, how can I go to private school? And then it hit me. We had the #1 basketball school in the country. And it was ran by a man named Bob Hurley, who got inducted to the Hall of Fame the same year Michael Jordan did. One of the top basketball coaches of all time. And Hurley is he's like a military guy. He's a guy that you're scared to even laugh around him, because he took the best athletes in the world, the best basketball players in the world, and he straightened them out. When Team USA was having a problem with Kevin Garnett, they brought Hurley there to be able to straighten them out, right? Hurley was the only one that most people listened to. So I'm like, I want to play for Hurley. And if I played for Hurley, everybody that played for Hurley went to college, 100%.
Wow.
So I said, if I play for Hurley had 5 to 6 people get a full Division I scholarship out of his program a year. So I'm like, if I play for Hurley, I'm going to make it in life. If you go in my town, or even on most of the United States, you tell people that you play for Bob Hurley, the chances of someone knowing him is very high, which means that I can get hired somewhere. So I got really excited. I wrote down, become a St. Anthony Friar, get a scholarship. So I'm super happy about it. Now I took that goal, because that goal is going to lead me to the biggest goal that I want to be when I grow up. And then I said, okay, what can I do to start on this today? So I went to school the next day. Mr. Fernandez in the morning looking for me. He said, I need to talk to you. And I said, you know what? You're 100% correct. I need to talk to you. So he was blown away. He was like, oh, you need to talk to me. And I said, look, I'm going to make you a deal. I'll tell you everything you want to hear. I'll tell you everything I never told people under one condition. He said, what's that? I said, you have to come every morning and you have to open up this gym at 6 a.m. and you have to catch my rebounds. He said, what? I said, you have to catch my rebounds and I'll tell you everything you want. I want to work on my jump shot, because if I work on my basketball game, I can go to play for St. Anthony's. He goes, you know what? I'll make you a deal. I'll do that. But the day that you miss it, every day after that, you have to come after school and you have to sit in my office. And I was like, oh man, I don't know if I want to make that deal. Then I was like, you know what? You got it. And I shook hands with him. The next morning I went there and I started working on my game. He came to the basketball gym the next morning and he came with this tank top, high shorts, high socks, a headband. And he had this gold chain and his gold wrist bracelet. And I'm like, this guy's a clown. He thinks I hope he doesn't want to play me because I'm gonna destroy him. I had something else come. This guy destroyed me. He threw elbows at me. He made moves on me. I was blown away. I couldn't tell the whole school about Mr. Fernandez is a good basketball player. Then I come to find out they're like, oh, you didn't know Mr. Fernandez was one of the best. He's in a New Jersey Basketball Hall of Fame. One morning I came in, he had the newspaper, and he had a guy named Mike Rosario that just got a scholarship to play for Rutgers. He takes the newspaper, he puts it up. Before I came in the gym, he said, go to that newspaper and read it. So I read it. Then I'm like, okay, let's go. He goes, no, go read it again. So I read it. I'm like, okay. He goes, now I want you to read it one more time, but I want you to, instead of saying Mike Rosario, put Nate Ortiz. And besides Mike's face there, imagine your face. And every morning he did that. And then when another player got a scholarship from that, he made me do it. And it became to a position where I felt as if I were already a St. Anthony Friar. So summertime comes. I'm all over the streets because my dad is moving, my mom is moving. So I'm in all different neighborhoods. So I went to every basketball court in Jersey City to play in every league to play against the best kids. One day Bob Hurley comes. He sees me play. I was in 6th grade. I played in the high school league. And he said, hey, man, hey, kid, you're good. You're pretty good. What do I know you from? I'm like, what do you know me from? You don't know me. And I was shaking because it's Bob Hurley. And then he goes, who's your father? And I said, oh, my father is Nate Turner. He goes, oh, yeah, I arrested your father. I said, what? He said, well, I used to be a parole officer and your father, I was on your father. How's your father doing today? Now I'm like, I don't want to tell him the truth because I don't want him thinking I'm, this bad kid. But then I knew that being honest was the best way to go. I'm like, oh, my dad's still, doing what he has to do to take care of us. So he looks around, he goes, come next week to the gym. I have a camp. Now, I already know about his camp. Each year, he does a basketball camp, and he gets 6th graders, 7th graders, 8th graders. It's kind of prospect, but also to see who's the best in the tri-state area. So he's like, all right, you can come. So I went to the camp. Now, the camp starts at 8 o'clock. I got there at 6. So one thing since I was a kid that I knew that I had to take advantage of, I didn't have the money for the gear. I didn't have money for the lessons, but I can outwork you. Mm-hmm. And I'll outwork the janitor. So I got there. The janitor gets there. He's like, what do you, and I was sitting in front of the gym. He's like, the camp doesn't start till 8. I said, I know, I'm going to wait. So as I waited, the assistant basketball coach let me in, pulled me to the side, and goes, where do I know you from? I'm like, you don't know me. He's like, who's your father? I said, well, Nate Turner. He goes, I used to be your father's gym teacher. So I'm like, oh my God, my dad is all over town. Everybody knows this guy. So then he goes, do you have breakfast with you? I said, no, I don't have breakfast. He said, mom and dad didn't give you money? I said, I don't have money. He said, well, do you want breakfast? I said, no, I just want the ball so I can shoot before these kids get here so I can destroy these kids today. So he gave me the ball. I got an hour. Every day I went 2 hours early to shoot. I became the MVP of the summer league. See, when you go to summer league, they give you a T-shirt. I took that T-shirt and wore it every day. So when I was done with the league, we won the championship. They moved me up to 8th grade. But when we were done with the league, I was going around the city telling all the drug dealers, because each section of my city, there's drug dealers that usually really run the courts there. They're sitting on the corners. Mm-hmm. And the drug dealers protected me from other neighborhoods coming over and hurting me. So I went to my neighborhood. I'm like, I got a scholarship. They're like, you got a scholarship? No, I didn't get a scholarship. But I knew if I told them I got a scholarship, that means I apply more pressure and I have to make the scholarship come true. I can't be a liar.
That's a good reverse psychology.
I did that in 6th grade and nobody believed me. Everybody laughed. So I had proof. My proof was, look at the shirt. I got the St. Anthony shirt. And so for 6th grade, I'd never missed a day of school. So I kept my deal. So when it was 7th grade coming back, now things are getting a little rough at home. Now, actually, and I never told nobody this, but going into 7th grade year was actually the first time I've ever seen my mom get high. And that was devastating because when I was growing up, I didn't know mom was getting high. Mm. I just thought my mom's bipolar and she has multiple personality disorder. Mm-hmm. So I'm working with like 5-6 different versions of my mother.
Yeah, that's tricky.
It's very tricky. So this is when I started to really want to understand psychology outside of the books with experience. Mm-hmm. So I remember one day I went home and my mom's doorknob was broke and I was trying to, let her know I was leaving. And then when I looked through the doorknob hole, I witnessed my mom getting high with her husband at the time. And that's when things started to get bad. So going in 7th grade, things started to go downhill. My dad made sure that Brandon and I, my little brother Brandon and I, we stood together. Nobody could separate us because my whole family was getting separated all the time. But Brandon and I never separated. He's like a twin. He looks like me. I call him my twin. But one of the hardest things for me was life was hard for me as a kid. But this guy he was 8 years old. He was 3 years younger than me. So I knew that I had to be the bigger brother and develop this mindset. I call it the bulletproof mindset. Nothing can stop it. I had to develop this mindset to protect him, So I go back to school, and immediately when I went to school, I wanted to know why I wanted to know why behind everything. So I'm like, why is my mom getting high? Why is my dad a drug dealer? Why is my dad not taking his knowledge so then why is my brain, sometimes I come to school and I can read, but sometimes I can't. I noticed I couldn't read after 12 p.m., after lunch. What is it? Is it the food? Right? So I started adding all these things up. So when I went back to school, immediately I started to experience a change in what was interesting to me and what wasn't. I became very serious with life. I stopped becoming a class clown. I wanted to get good grades. And I remember when I went home, my stepfather went to prison that year. My stepfather came home from prison. He was a different man. And he looked like a superhero. This guy was built like the Hulk. So immediately I noticed that my mother would yell at him. He won't react. I noticed that he was not an alcoholic, or he wasn't drinking at the time. What did he do? I want to know what happened. So I asked him what happened. What did he do differently? And he told me to come with him the next morning at 7 a.m. So I woke up the next morning at 7 a.m. I went to the park, and it was like 7 other guys there that just came home from prison. And they put me on the pull-up bar. They said, okay, do some pull-ups. Now, I was always overweight when I was a kid, and there was no way I can do a push-up or pull-up. But even though it was obvious I couldn't do it, they encouraged me. So I saw the power of the mind. Immediately, they encourage, you can do it. Now, if I had this big, strong guy tell me I can do it, I can do it. So I noticed that if I told my mind I can do something, I can do it. And as we were working out, 15 to 20 minutes in our workout, these guys start talking about their feelings. I'm like, what the hell is going on here? These tough guys are talking about how they're sad and how they're going to make something out of their life. And then I noticed myself, as soon as like 25, 30 minutes was starting to cave in, I started to notice myself feel grounded for the first time in my life. When I walked away, I noticed that my thoughts were more aligned. I noticed that my feelings were more managed, and I couldn't wait to share it with somebody. So I went to immediately my friends that were in gangs, and I convinced them to come to the basketball with me at 6 a.m. So I got 15 of my friends that were all on the streets to come with me in the morning. In 7th grade, 8th grade, they never missed a day of school. They never got back. They never got in trouble. 14 of them today have families. They're out of jail. They went to high school and they're successful. Only one of them are in jail right now. So I saw the power of putting your mind to something, moving the body, and then coming together in encouragement.
Hello, everybody. I'm super excited to announce our new live show called PT 3.0 that will be available to you at youtube.com/Chek Institute. That's CHEK Institute. Each PT 3.0 episode will be offered every first and third Wednesday of the month and is a 30-minute live show designed specifically to help exercise professionals and anyone who wants to use exercise scientifically in their practices. The host of the show will be a Chek faculty member, a high-level practitioner, or an industry expert that is aligned with Chek principles, and each show offers us the following free bonus materials: a Q&A segment at the end of the episode, a downloadable reference guide to help audience members apply what they've learned. We call this PT 3.0 because the purpose of the show is to provide next-generation training to personal trainers and to help them evolve in their practice. PT 3.0 is a web show designed to provide 30 minutes of intense, essential training to personal trainers and strength coaches that will make an instant impact on their business and practice. This is not a webinar or a podcast, but a fully produced online show featuring a live host and high-quality footage of assessments, exercises, stretches, and program design together with Q&A for targeted bite-sized education. Each episode will be highly focused, training, for example, one assessment or one program design technique or one stretch, etc. Each episode will be broadcast live on our YouTube channel, and the show is Free. Hallelujah. Each episode will be recorded and available to you on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Chek Institute. And again, it's completely free. Subscribe to our YouTube channel for notification when each episode begins by going to youtube.com/Chek Institute. To see our upcoming episode schedule and to receive advanced notifications of all episodes, go to pt3.chekinstitute.com. Once again, to see our upcoming episode schedule and receive advanced notification for all episodes, go to pt3.chekinstitute.com. We hope you enjoy this live show.
So 8th grade comes around, no scholarship from Bob Hurley. I'm like, I got to do something. Now things are getting worse. Now we lose the apartment.
Uh-oh.
Now we go to Red Cross. So in the morning, I go to school with a laundry bag. And I got a laundry bag, deodorant in there, a toothbrush, and probably leftover dinner from last night if I had. And I came to school. The nurse used to allow me and my brother to dump our laundry bag of our stuff, because then after school, we have to walk probably like 2 hours to Red Cross, sit at Red Cross, and then wait for a donation to come in. So they had donations come in that were being distributed to different things they had. And then there was leftover donations that they'll buy me a room. So when they brought me a room, that room can be 2 hours the other way.
Wow.
So we did this in the winter. We did this all year round. And then sometimes the rooms had bed bugs. So we knew how to work with bed bugs. We had an agreement with bed bugs. We made like little ways to not get bit. And it was just crazy. So I started to lose a little bit of hope, as if I wasn't going to get a scholarship from Bob Hurley. Usually by 8th grade, you get the scholarship, didn't get anything. One day, I'm in school. I'm going to the bathroom. My brother goes, Nate. I'm like, what? He goes, come here. I ran over. He goes, Bob Hurley's daughter is my teacher. Her first day was today. His daughter is my teacher. I can tell him about you. I'm like, are you serious right now? So after school, I go get my brother from picking him up. And he goes, this is my brother. This is my brother. Your dad has to give him a scholarship. She goes, hi, I'm Melissa. And I'm like, oh, hi. She goes, your brother keeps talking about you. Now, my brother, since we were missing so much school, my brother was left back 2 grades. So my brother is like 5'10" in 3rd grade.
Wow.
So but he was so smart that Melissa fought for him to be pushed back to his regular grade.
Mm-hmm.
So she changed his life. But at the same time, she convinced her father to come to one of my games. The only game that he was able to come to was a summer league in the middle of the ghetto. And I'd never imagined Bob Hurley coming to that part of the town, but I mean, he ran the town. He can go any part he wants. I remember the day like it was yesterday. Our league was so broken that the 8th graders were paying seniors in high school. So it was drug dealers that was running the leagues. Because what drug dealers did, they found out how to get recreational money to run a recreational league, but then also put a little money in their pocket. So one day I remember I'm warming up and I'm playing this kid that has a Division I scholarship. I'm in 8th grade. Now this park that we're playing in, I used to sleep in this park because sometimes Red Cross didn't come through, or sometimes mom locked the door and I couldn't get in the house. So I had to find somewhere to go. So I used to tell my brother, if we want to be successful in life, you got to be able to really like work for it. To the point, are you willing to sleep in a basketball court to become a basketball player? I used to make up these stories to keep his imagination from crumbling, because if he crumbled, I crumbled. So sometimes we had to sleep in that park or stay there till like 3, 4 in the morning, then wait in front of the school until the janitor comes and then go inside. So I used to shoot in this park with no lights. So this was my park. We're warming up. I'm like, all right, I have to play this college kid. I don't know. You see a white Audi come, convertible. Bob Hurley pulls up. People go, Nate, Hurley's here. Hurley. Everybody told me. At that moment, I felt in my heart in my gut, this was my moment. I had 55 points and I earned a full scholarship to play for Bob Hurley that day.
Yeah, good.
When we did that, my mom lost it even more, to the point where my dad says, my mom started to really beat us, to the point where my dad was like, all right, I can't, I'm going to have to risk my freedom. So you guys are going to have to stay with me now. So we used to stay, as soon as I got in high school, we started staying in a hotel right in front of the Holland Tunnel. And every day at 11 o'clock, we were waiting for my dad, hopefully made enough money so we can pay for the room. But now it was, Nate, take this bottle, go to the car, and make sure he gives you $2,200.
Wow.
Nate, take this bottle, drive here, make sure that this person gives you 3,500, and don't let them leave if they don't give you all the money. So now it was me having to do something that I was not built for. I grew up with all these people on the streets, but in my heart, since I was a kid, I felt like I was not here to do. I just wasn't built for it. My brother was, my cousins are. For me, if me and you had a fight, which I try to avoid all I can, I'll cry after.
Yeah.
And give you a hug and talk to you like we should never do that again. And then you're bleeding with a broken hose, and I'm like, don't do that to me again, please. Let's not do that again. So things were getting worse as far as that, that was going. And then now I'm in St. Anthony's. I got the full scholarship, and then the school found out I was homeless, and then I was busted because they found me coming back and forth from the hotel because the hotel was only a couple blocks away from the school. And then the whole school tried to help me, give me like, granola bars during the day and stuff. And it was really nice of them to do. But then I knew I had to figure out how to get to college. So long story short, when I was in high school, they started a football program, and Hurley was like, Nate, you're 6'3", you're 240, you're very athletic. Why don't you try to play football? They're going to start a program. I'm like, I'll never play football. And Hurley's like, Nate, I think all professional tight ends play basketball, and they became great tight ends. So I gave it a try. And first, I was the first Division I football player in school history. And I had 25 scholarships. I was the number 2 tight end in the state of New Jersey. I made All-State. I made the New Jersey All-Star team. And but football really wasn't what I wanted to do. It was my way to get to college. I got a full scholarship. I went to Delaware, and they said, the counselor's like, you should just study communications. Football players come, they study communications, easy, play football, go to the NFL. And I was like, no. I want to study bachelor science. I want to study movement science. I want to know why the body looks like this and why muscles hurt. And they're like, Nate, you can't do that. Only 3% of student athletes go through that program and actually finish. And he kind of like lean over, and he said, you got to learn disabilities. That's going to be really difficult. And as soon as he said I couldn't do it, I'm like, all right, now I'm going to do it just to show you I can do it. So I ended up going through that, becoming one of the top students in that. And then I blew up in football. I was the first tight end to do a lot of things in school history. And then one day we have 4 NFL scouts there. They checked my weight. They're not allowed to talk to me as being an athlete. But we all knew that I was going to be predicted probably 4th round. And I remember I was in football practice. They were there. My coach was showing me off, and he was doing all the plays to favor me. And then I remember one play I'm blocking because I'm tight end. I block and I catch. I'm blocking, and my teammate ran right into my spine. And I felt tingling going down my legs.
Uh-oh.
And I said, okay, something's not right. So I ran over to the coach, and I said, Coach, my legs are tingling. And he said, shut the hell up and get back in there. So I go back in, and then it was a play where I had to act like I was blocking the defensive end. And then if the linebacker comes, I get off the defensive end, I run, and I catch the ball because the linebacker's not there. And that's exactly what happened. Linebacker went, I went, but as I turned, I lost feeling in my legs. The ball hit my helmet. I collapsed, and I was rushed to the emergency room.
You blew a disc?
Yes.
L5?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And L4 was also, I damaged L4 as well. Now I'm in a wheelchair, worst pain of my life, and they want to give me drug painkillers, but I'm scared to take drugs because my parents are addicts. So I'm like, no, I can't take that. And then I start to cry, and I knew that my chances of, the spinal doctor was trying to do emergency surgery on me. He's like, you got to go to surgery. And I'm like, I'm not going to surgery. I don't want surgery. And then as I'm sitting there, I started to cry, and my teammates came. 2 of my teammates came, and we all knew my career was over. And then I started to laugh, and they're like, what is so funny? And I'm like, oh my God, I'm not supposed to be a football player, man. This is going to be another chapter in my book.
Yeah.
And I'm going to inspire the world from this. So they're like, oh, the painkillers are kicking in. I'm like, no, they're not. I didn't take them. So I went home, and I went through a deep depression because now I did not know who I was without being an athlete.
Yeah.
My whole life I had back issues. And when I was 16, I remember I came across somebody for the first time in my entire life that I said, that is me. I couldn't find that in basketball. I couldn't find that in football. You find a nice basketball player, I'm not 6'8". You find a nice football player, they can't relate to me. They grew up in the middle class. So one day I was online, And I was always trying to search for answers to dig deeper into the science I was learning at school. And this freaking guy kept on coming up, and it was annoying me because this guy did not look like he knew what he was talking about. This guy didn't look like a doctor. I'm programmed to look for people that are doctors. And this guy's name was Yo Elliott.
Elliott Hulse.
Yes.
Okay.
I came across Yo Elliott at 16. I didn't want to watch his videos. I'm going to be 100% honest with you because of the programming I had.
Mm-hmm.
This guy was jacked, looked like an older version of me. And I'm like, I don't want to talk. I don't listen to this guy. He doesn't know what he's talking about. And then one day, I couldn't get rid of this back pain. My whole life, I had back and I have rheumatoid arthritis. Could not get rid of it. And I'm like, he had a video saying why your back is jacked up. So I avoided it for like 5 months. Every time I was looking up back pain, I was like, don't listen to this guy. So one day I go click the video. And this guy goes, the reason why your back is jacked up is because your guts are messed up.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, what the hell did he just say? So I rewinded it. And he goes, here's some signs that you know your gut's messed up. Farting, bloating. And I'm like, oh my God, that's me. So I start digging in all his videos. And as I'm watching him, my ego did not want to accept none of his information, but there was this gut feeling, this intuition in my gut and my heart that not only that I have to dig deeper, but a sense of finally I found me. I found who I am.
Yeah. The
Because-
golden thread.
So when I was growing up, I was always trying to figure out, I'm half black, half white. Who am I? I can't rap. I can't relate to these rappers. I can't relate to nobody. And I'm motivating. I was always growing up on the streets of Jersey City where you can catch me motivating you to stop drinking so we can, have our minds straight for tomorrow to escape this ghetto. And when I saw Yo Elliott speak, I'm like, that's me. That guy is me. So then I want to know, where the hell did you learn this information from? I said, where did you learn this from? I'm in school. I'm not learning this right now. Dug deep, and he had a video of saying something with my mentor. And then there I see Paul Chek. I see Yo Elliott and Paul. So I click on the video, and then I didn't hear a word you said. I wasn't hearing anything you said yet. The video just started. What made me want to listen more is I studied body language because when I used to come out my bedroom, I used to have to know what mom I had that day.
Yeah.
Do I have mom that's going to beat the hell out of me?
Mm-hmm.
Is mom high, drunk? I can tell by what she's doing, by hearing. And then when I looked at her shoulders, her eyes.
Mm-hmm.
I saw how Yo Elliott was standing next to you. And I said, this is the guy I look up to. But I can just tell by his body language that he's all ears with this guy. And I don't care what the hell this guy has to say. I'm listening to everything he says. So I listened to the video, and then that's when I go deep on your work. Then I'm like, oh, this guy's a wizard. So then that's when I called Dad, and I said, Dad, I found someone smarter than you. I was like, okay, I want to get the book that you had, How to Eat, Move, and Be Healthy. And I was so broke. I was 16 at the time.
You should have just emailed me. I'd have given it to you.
You know what's great? I didn't even have access to email. We only had access to email in the morning when I lived in a hotel. But I didn't even know what email was. I was so out of that world. And as I'm growing up, I was trying to get How to Eat, Move, and Be Healthy. But tell you the truth, you gave so much information that you made. I read 45,000 books that you made. But you have to put the effort in. A lot of people are not willing to put the effort in to look in your blogs, actually sit down and watch a 30-minute video. I did all of that. I have notebooks of your work. So I was watching the video you made, and you said that you said that there's only so much fast food information you can give.
Right.
And you kind of changed my perspective on investing into education.
Yeah, good.
But at the same time, you also said in one of the videos that it's your way of giving back to the universe. And I'm like, I don't think this guy understands that he's actually getting me through what I'm going through for free. And I can't one day, I just couldn't wait to thank you one day.
That's why I do it. You know how many thousands of hours I've put in? There's over 750 videos on my channel.
Mm-hmm.
You know, my philosophy has always been to be an information Santa Claus. Santa comes down the chimney and he leaves you something nice. And he doesn't charge you anything. Just like you're saying, I've been through a lot of hard times myself, and there's always been key people in my life that somehow managed to teach me something or give me something. Because I'd had so many letters from people saying, I can't afford to take your course, I can't afford to buy your book, I can't afford to go to the institute or whatever. So I just felt that it was my responsibility spiritually to the rest of myself, because philosophically I believe that there's only one being that exists, and that's what we call God. And so I felt obligated to make sure that anyone that could access video could at least find solutions or know what questions to ask their doctors or their therapists so that they could have a rational approach to what was going on to begin to understand it. I mean, I've done videos on everything. Obviously, you've watched a lot of them, so
I watched them over and over again.
yeah, well, you know,
The same video like 1,000 times.
well, you probably got a better education than you would have gotten in a university.
Well, that's the interesting thing. When I actually started to go to school, I had a lot of challenges with my professors because
Of course you did.
And then I started to notice, oh, the program is deep.
Yes.
There's a deep programming going on. And I was never one to hold back. The best thing about the information is I applied it. As soon as I started to apply it, one of the first things is a fungal infection. I lived in mold houses. And I studied the hell out of your fungal infection information. I applied it and I saw my attention disorder leave.
Yes.
My depression leave. These pimples on my face disappear.
Yeah.
So
fungal mycotoxins are extremely toxic. They're some of the most dangerous chemicals in the world. I don't know if you know this, but they use them in military warfare. I actually saw a video once doing some research where they had extracted the fungal mycotoxins and made a liquid out of it. And they had a rat in a glass box, and the scientist dropped one drop of this liquid from fungal mycotoxins, and it killed the rat instantly. The rat just fell over and dropped dead with one drop of fungal mycotoxins. And they're considered to be some of the most dangerous chemicals in the world. And some of the most sick people I've ever had to work with are people that didn't realize they had a fungal infection in their house.
Mold, right?
Mold, yeah.
So when I went through the stuff, like the school, as I'm going through school, I already in my mind, when my career was over, in the back of my mind, I said, I have to figure out how to do what Elliot Halls did. I want to be the next Joe Elliott, because I saw him turn his dream into green, is what I call it.
Yeah.
Turning his dream into making a beautiful business, but also helping millions of people. I graduated college. Now, when I graduate college, my dad has an apartment, but he has it in one of the worst neighborhoods in New Jersey. It was in Newark, New Jersey, and it was a very, very, it was a scary neighborhood that
I've been there. I know exactly what you're talking about. You know what's strange? I'm trying to remember. 1988. It was either the men's or the women's Olympic trials in the marathon were held there, and I was the therapist for both the men's and the women's, and I had 10 athletes that I coached make it to the Olympic trials. And the first thing I noticed, I could not find food worth eating anywhere, and there was a huge problem with obesity there. And forgive me for saying, but I felt like I was in a shithole. I'm like, well, who in the hell would live here?
No, you gotta. Listen, I feel the same way.
I'm like, why did they put the friggin' marathon trials here? I mean, these poor athletes are. I remember I went to a restaurant, and this is a long time ago, and the waitress is a huge fat lady, and she brought me a bunch of white bread, and I said, I'm just curious, do you guys even have brown bread or whole grain bread? And she looked at me and she said, what's that? I'm like, oh my God, we're in big trouble.
So what started to happen in New Jersey is that on the Hudson River, you have Jersey City and Hoboken, and then you have Bayonne on the other side. What happens is it started to be, I call it baby Manhattan. So people started to build brand new housing and buildings on the Hudson River. So people that went to New York, it was too expensive to get an apartment, come over to New Jersey and get an apartment for cheaper, and it's new.
Right.
So what that did is it raised the rent on people that were, didn't have money, and they all started to move back and a lot of them ended up in Newark. Now, not to say everybody, but Newark was always a struggling city when it came down to that. And it was a city that I didn't like going to because, like I said, in Jersey City, I was protected. The drug dealers and the gang guys knew who I was, and they protected me. This neighborhood, they don't care who you are. So when I graduated college, I'm like, where am I going to live? I didn't even think about these things because I was planning to go to the NFL. And my girlfriend's father pulls me to the side. Tells my girlfriend, hey, listen, you're a good kid. And I know you're going to be successful. So you can come live with us in Washington Heights. So they had this apartment, probably a 700 square foot apartment in Washington Heights. But when you enter his home, he made it feel like you were in Tribeca. He redid everything. But Washington Heights is one of the worst neighborhoods in New York, right? So I go from one ghetto to another. But here's the thing. Number one, when I went there, I always had clean clothes. I had heat. I had hot water. And this was in 2017. And I knew it was somewhere I was going to go that had internet. And it was in New York City. I can get on a train and train people, You know
it's strange. You're saying this was only 2017. What is this?
2022, 5 years ago.
5 years ago. It's a very interesting thing for me because, I'm 61. So 2017 for me feels like 5 minutes ago.
Yeah.
What's coming to me is that you're Destiny's child. It's just like the unfolding. It's in your life. It's moving quite fast. How old are you, Nate?
I turned 29.
It's like you're living a very accelerated life. Because to go from there in 2017 to having your first place to have clean clothes and a shower and a stable environment to where you're at now is that's like getting shot out of a cannon.
Yeah. I say my whole life, though, I use my imagination and I never accepted. I knew I was going to do what I'm doing today. So if it feels like I was shot out of a cannon, but at the same time, it felt like this interview right now between you and I did this already in my mind 1,000 times. When you were interviewing other people, I imagined that anytime your guest responded, that was me. I imagine myself sitting there. I really did that. My mind was something that got me out of all of this. But at the same time, there's something that I noticed side effects from this as well. So as great as it sounds that I was doing, the side effects is it's hard for me to sit down on a Monday after accomplishing everything and not doing something else, working on something.
Yeah,
right.
It's hard to put a rein on.
Yeah, because I became obsessed. You know what? Yeah, I became obsessed with making sure I'm scoping out the person that I want to become. I'm doing something to make sure that happens.
Yeah. Well, at your age, that's a normal. There's a lot of drive when you're that age to create your identity and have a sense of who you are, and to, if you're healthy, to do something in the world. I got news for you. That's going to go on for a while.
Hey, listen, you got to tell my partner.
Well, the thing is, when I was in the age you're at now, I was like a literal ball of fire. I was intensely driven. I came to the realization what I was here in the world to do the day I became the trainer of the Army boxing team, and then had the experience of seeing how my knowledge and my therapy that I did for the fighters enhanced their performance, and the coaches, and saying, whatever the hell you're doing, it's working, because, the injury rate dropped down dramatically and their athletic ability improved dramatically. And I was in fights with the coaches all the time because they kept wanting to do stupid stuff, and I kept having to try to explain to them why that wasn't working. And they would say, how can you say that to us? Do you know how many champions we've created? And you know what I would say to them? I have a more important question you should ask. How many have you ruined along the way? The only reason I'm bringing this up is because, I can look at your story and I can find myself in your story, and I can see the intensity but I can save you a lot of time. There's a reason I teach working in, and there's a reason I did Tai Chi every day for 18 years. And there's a reason I haven't been missed a day of work due to illness in over 40 years. Because however much fire you have, it takes that much water to keep you in balance. Basic alchemy. So if you push yourself so hard that you get to the point where you start losing your sense of center, your sense of focus, and your sense of connection to things that aren't meaningful. And what I mean by that is it's very easy at your age to keep having to do something that's meaningful, that produces a result, that gets you somewhere, but that takes tremendous focus. And what happens is your mind starts to get tired, and your body is what's carrying your mind. So if your mind is tired, your body's tired. And so what happens is you start losing your creativity, you start losing your enthusiasm, and your girlfriend will want to take your phone away and your computer away and your books away and get you to just look into her eyes and be present with what's right in front of you so that you can see God instead of reading books about it. And it took me a long time to learn that. So, I think if there's anything I can give you at this time in your life, always ask yourself, how much water do I need to balance my fire so that I'm not burnt out, my mind is clear, and I have the time to make the important decisions that not only give me the success that I want and give me the ability to help other people, but don't take me away from contact with the people that I'm here to love and that love me. Because if you get too far, and I've done it, I lost contact with my son, Paul Jr., and I lost contact with my first wife because I was like you. I was too focused, and anybody that got in my way was a pain in the ass because I was on a mission. And so I ended up with a wounded son who thought I loved work more than I loved him, but similar to you, coming from a rough family environment and parents that often didn't have much money, I was focused on getting away from that. And so in my mind, I had created this story that as long as I make enough money, that my family can have a nice home and shoes and clothes and things that upset me because I didn't get compared to my friends as a kid, that I was doing the best thing for them. So I ended up living in a nice condo in a nice part of town, in a wealthy part of town, making lots of money, but the people that loved me only got to see me study and work and study and work and study and work. And so it caused pain because they felt that I loved my work and other people more than I loved them. And so though some of these are hard lessons to learn, especially when you come from a background like yours, because you get to the point where you realize that the success you have is because you did the hard work to get there. You made the goal. And so the next target is the next goal because the mind says that's what I've got to do to be safe. But in reality, what happens is you find yourself financially safe, but losing connection to your heart.
Hi, everybody. I'm sure you've all heard of the benefits of bone broth, but I bet you don't know about bone broth protein powder. I found an awesome bone broth protein powder with Paleo Valley, and I asked Autumn Smith if she'd explain why hers is so good from Paleo Valley.
Well, like you said, collagen is basically the fountain of youth, and most of us are not getting enough of it in our diet because maybe we don't have time to simmer bones on a regular basis. And so we created our powder to make getting the benefits of collagen for your joint health, for your gut health, for your mental health really, really simple. And we sourced it from 100% grass-fed and grass-finished bones. So it is a beef bone broth protein powder that you can literally put in everything. It's tasteless. I add it to my son's smoothies. smoothies. I put it into his desserts. You can even put it in soup and get all the benefits of collagen without all of the time and energy and investment. So all you have to do to check it out is go to our website at paleovalley.com. That's PALEOVALLEY.com. And you can use the code CHEK15. That's lowercase CHEK 15 at checkout. And I hope your family loves it.
I know you'll love it. Keep your body healthy, keep your kids healthy, and let's make the world a better place with Paleo Valley. Enjoy.
So I ended up going to New York City. And as I'm in New York City, every day I woke up and I made a video, and I had no job. I had nowhere to go. I had nothing. My girlfriend went to acting class. Her father was a hardworking man and a great father who took care of his kids, who worked his butt off every day. And I would go to Starbucks every day because they had Wi-Fi. I'd get their coffee, and then I'll get their bathroom code all for $2 in a cup of water for $2. So, but I would put myself in that position to make myself feel like I was going to work. So I used to sit at Starbucks and I would write down a goal every day. And my goal was to become a Chek practitioner.
Well, you did it.
Yeah. And I was like, if I become a Chek practitioner, I can change a lot of things. So I started to apply. I got into HLC1. I started to apply these things. Then I got all the courses, the program design. I applied all this stuff to my coaching, making videos. People requested, help. I would go all over New York City, help people. But I applied all my coaching in the holistic lifestyle coaching formula.
Good.
Nobody has ever seen that. And then I bring my enthusiasm to it. And then I started changing people's lives. And it was getting to a point where doctors were calling me, asking me to work with their obese clients before they do bypass surgery. Like, can you help them before we do the bypass surgery?
That was nice of them to ask. Most of them don't ask. They
No,
don't
they
want
don't.
you to win.
Exactly. So out of nowhere, one day I get a phone call from Goldman Sachs vice president. His name was Steve Silverman. And he thinks I would be a great leader and the new person to run his business in Westchester, New York. I was 24. And I had to figure out how to grow a business. I never did it before. So I got there early every day and I just studied on how to run a business. I turned into being a very successful business because I was applying my Chek practitioner, knowledge, and I was changing people. People come back pain, never looked at their digestive tract. People come with attention, just a huge rise in attention disorder in kids today that I see. So I was getting all this success. At the same time, I moved my girlfriend out of her father's apartment. We get our first little apartment. And then I told her quit her job and just focus on acting. For 5 years, we focused. I'll go to work all day. Plus, I started building my own business on the side. I'm like, if I can build this guy a business, I'll build my own. Now, as I'm doing both of those, I come home and I would do scripts all day with my partner. And one day I come home and she had the script. I was so tired. I didn't want to do it. But as soon as I saw the script, I'm like, this is going to be your part. And she ended up booking a main series TV show, Saved by the Bell. It was a reboot, and she was the main actress. She goes to Los Angeles. Now I'm in New York, and I'm like, my soul was telling me I had to go experience being on my own, leave safety and security. And when you come from the root chakra dysfunctions and safety and security, I didn't want to do that. And then COVID hit. And as soon as COVID hit, I went up to Los Angeles and I had to figure out, okay, Nate, now do it from scratch. Do everything by yourself. At first, I went through like a little depression. It was really hard for me because now I'm going around Los Angeles. I was building my name up in New York. Now I'm a nobody. And now I'm driving around and my partner is all over billboards. She's a star. And then I was Nate. I was Haskiri's boyfriend. I was the boyfriend of somebody. And I'm like, no. I'm Nate. So I had to find myself. It was like a nice reality check. And then that's when I sat down again and I started to manifest.
Well, you should have come to the first realization that the divine feminine is more powerful than the divine masculine.
Right. So I sat there and I said, you know what? This little fear of criticism, this fear that I have of making videos and putting myself out there about the information that I'm learning, I'm not going to let it hold me back. I gave you little bits here and there, but now I'm going to go all in. And when I decided to go all in, I started to say to myself, I'm going to have celebrities come ask for help. And that's exactly what started to happen. Celebrities come for mental, issues when it comes down to digestion, weight loss, back pain, but then a lot of life coaching. I put life coaching and life coaching, they all go together if you like it or not, right?
Well, they have to.
They have to. So then I started transforming people's lives, and then I got a Grammy-nominated artist that had to lose weight. I got him down 35 pounds. Everybody thought it was going to be impossible because he was a hip hop artist. And then he was dating Naomi Osaka. So I applied a lot of this stuff to Naomi Osaka, her nutrition, a lot of that stuff. And she ends up winning the Australian Open in 2020. And then things start to take off. And then every time I made money, one thing I did throughout my journey is I always made an account to make sure that I can go get HLC1, HLC2, HLC3. I can pay for my hotel. I can pay for my food. And then I came to HLC2 in 2020 at the end of in November, October, and that's when I met Angie Chek. And listen to this. I'm sitting in class. There's like 35 of us. We're doing our own thing. And you know how you make us have to do our own HLC health appraisal and, the paperwork that we have to do for
you're
ourselves.
supposed to write your own program.
You write? Yeah. So my charts came back all in red. So we're hanging out in class. Everybody's doing what they got to do. And Angie's like, all right, we're going to find someone, if you want to participate to become the example of the client, let us know. And we're going to make you the example so we can apply all the knowledge. And I'm like, okay. And just want to throw this in there. Angie Chek is the best teacher I've ever had in my life.
She is.
Best I've ever had in my life.
Well, she's the best I've ever seen in my life. So, I mean, you weren't there at the Chek conference in 2013, but we had the ultimate Chek professional contest, and Chek professionals from all over the world sent in an application to show and describe what they had done with the Chek teachings. So the goal was to award somebody the ultimate Chek professional. And I think for the actual conference, we had narrowed it down to the three or four people, and they each got a half-hour presentation. And of course, it was the Chek Institute and my teaching. So I thought, well, I want to see what people have been doing with this, because that's the whole point I built the Institute, was so the guys like you could go do something with it. Because, when you have as much knowledge as I do and you look at the world, you go, God, you're in deep trouble right now.
Yes.
So anyhow, I was so utterly blown away with Angie's presentation. I mean, it literally brought tears to my eyes, and she was making me laugh. She was even making fun of me in the presentation, which was even funnier. But, I'm just reiterating, and she's a master of time, and she studies, and she's always asking me questions for clarification. So I didn't know at the time she'd end up being my second wife. That was not something I realized, but your assessment of her teaching skills is very accurate, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, she was amazing. And
she's funny.
She's extremely funny. She throws it in her teachings, and she does it at the right moment. So what she did is, from the paperwork, when she was able to tell me about my whole life without looking at just to look at the questionnaire, she told me about my whole life. Was the first time I told a group of people in front of me what happened to me in my life. Everybody was crying in class. I was fighting from breaking down and just losing it, because it was the first time I felt like a mother archetype was making sure I was okay.
She's a strong mother.
I was just blown away. So my number one goal was, when I come back to HLC3, I want to have better paperwork so I can show it off.
Good idea.
So after that, I was the client that week. And then after I was the client, she gave me how we have to take the test, the paperwork. At the end, she handed me my paperwork and congratulated me, but she kept me for the last, and everybody was crying. We all came and did a big group hug, and I'm sitting there, and she looked at me and she goes, "You remind me a lot of Paul with his work ethic, and it's okay to rest, and it's okay to take your time."
See, it's coming at you again.
Yeah, it was coming at me. So it was catching up to me, what you said earlier. I started to notice that I'm just a completely honest guy.
I went from safer policy.
Yeah. I went from being like 10% body fat to like 15% body fat.
Mm-hmm.
How? I eat the same way. I train even harder now. And then I start to see I was losing my body. And then I start to lose my creativity. I was losing my creativity.
Mm-hmm.
And then I lost my grandfather.
Mm.
Who's like a best friend to me. And then I lost my stepfather the next month. And then I had HLC3 coming up.
Right.
and I did not want to go to HLC3 because I felt embarrassed. I said, I got fat. I know this guy. And it was the first time I knew I was going to come across you, and I waited my whole life for that. And I was like, I would be so embarrassed if I have to take a shirt off in front of this man right now. And he's in his 60s and he's jacked. And now I'm looking like, I was like, I can't have that. So I told myself I wasn't going to go. And I was going to formulate an email. It was the first time in my life that I was going to avoid something and not put myself through. But like you said earlier, it was also the first time in my life that I couldn't build up the courage until I get a phone call by Vinny.
Yep, Vinny used to work in our customer service department.
I went to HLC2 with him. I'm like, what's up, Vin? How are you? I'm good. He's like, you won a gift from Paul. I'm like, a gift? What are you talking about? He's like, well, you won a painting. I'm like, whoa. I won that painting? Now, for like 3 months, you were talking about how you were doing this painting. And I'm like, well, whoever gets that painting is one lucky person, right? Like, it sounds like an amazing painting that's coming out. So when he told me how I got the painting, I was like, oh, crap. He goes, we were going to ship it to you, Nate, but you're coming down next week. So we'll just hold it on. So I'm like, oh, my God, I have to go down now. So next week I go to HLC3. I show off my paperwork to Angie. And then I have a before and after picture. And then the next day you came up. And when you was coming up, I was like, all right, this is the first time I'm going to meet this guy. I can't wait. The first thing you said is, who the hell is the person who won this painting?
Yeah. But you know why I said that, don't you?
I do. And you wrote me a letter. You wrote me a 4-page letter.
That's why I asked.
Yeah, because that letter, you need a professor to read that letter. That letter used words that I'm not even sure the dictionary has. So yeah, I brought the painting with me here
Yeah,
today.
you can show it.
Yeah, I'll show this painting.
I honestly, for me, that was a tough painting because there was so much more that I wanted to do, but I just had no time. I was extremely busy, as I always am, because I'm working on this new book series. And so what I did was I asked my soul to please connect me to the person that the painting was ultimately for, whoever it was that was going to win it. And I went into meditation in the sauna and asked for the vision that I was supposed to paint, which was ultimately for you. And as I sat in meditation, all I saw was eyes everywhere. And I just kept seeing eyes. And then I saw that they were structured. And I said to my soul, this looks like Indra's net. And my soul said, that's correct. Whoever the person you're painting this for is a networker. A networker. So because I understand what Indra's net is very deeply, and I've studied it extensively, and it's actually talked about a lot in my new book, I said, okay, well, I'm going to paint this. And I originally was going to do it on like a huge canvas because Indra's net is the universe. It's, beyond the universe. But I said, I can only do this. And, there's 50 eyes on there.
Yes, there are. Yep.
So I thought, well, I've got to do something fairly simple for this guy because I've barely got time to wipe my ass right now. So I was getting in here early in the morning and working on that thing, like 4:30, 4 o'clock in the morning. I'd have a cup of coffee or espresso and do my prayers, and then I'd come sit and paint, and then I'd have to go back to work, and then I'd come in. I just kept coming in and out, and then I'd try to take a little time on the weekend, but I got to the point where I said, okay, I can't keep going because if I finish this painting, it's going to take me another 50 hours because there's, a lot in there that I couldn't paint because it's so detailed. And that was what was driving me crazy, is because every time I would start adding to it, I was like, okay, there's so much more. How in the world am I going to finish this? So I finally said to my soul, you tell me when it's done enough to give to the winner. Before I brought it to you, because I didn't know it was you, I went into meditation and said to my soul, please connect me to the soul of this person so I can write them a letter about this painting. And so I just got connected to your soul, and I said, what would you like me to write in this letter so that they know for sure that this painting's for them? So that's how the letter got written.
In the letter, you said, I know you recently just lost people you loved.
Yes.
I'm like, what? You mentioned I don't feel safe, and because my whole life I've been trying to find home,
Yeah.
and you said you just want to confirm to me that Earth is my home,
Yeah.
and it was so much more infinite. And then one of the biggest things that stood out and that is magical about this painting is that you said that you put eyes on because I help more than one person. So when I help one person,
Yeah.
I'm helping more, and I
Mhm.
need to just trust the process. Now, the problem that I was having at a point in my life was doubt kind of was creeping in because I'm like, I'm doing these videos and I'm still not growing the way I want to grow because my focus and my intention was I gotta grow, I gotta grow, I gotta grow, and it wasn't one video at a time, one person at a time.
Mhm.
And as soon as I took that approach, that was on June 8th. I got that. On June 28th, I went viral on the internet, and all the years of hard work that I've put in just blew up. All the old videos that I put up all went up on TikTok, this app called TikTok that I never thought I would ever be successful on because I don't dance. I thought it was a just dancing app.
Mhm.
And as soon as that happened, everything just took off
You
in
should
a
start
good way.
dancing
So
for
everything.
fun
Oh yeah.
with her.
Yeah. Yeah, we
Just
actually talked about taking dancing classes
Just
together.
yeah, just play. Don't worry about classes. Just put on music that you like. Take 5 minutes to start your day and shake it out. I do it all the time. It feels freaking great. And just dance for God, dance for life, dance for all the people that haven't danced. Remember, you've probably heard me say it before. There's 5 questions a shaman's going to ask you if you come to them in trouble. When did you stop enjoying being alone? When did you stop singing? When did you stop dancing? When did you lose your sense of magic, mystery, and awe for life? There's one more, but those are the key questions, right?
Mhm.
You look from this day forward at every one of your patients. When did you stop enjoying being alone with yourself? Whatever answer they give you, you write it down. When did you stop dancing? Write it down. When they stop singing to sing, write it down. When did you lose your sense for the magic, mystery, and awe of life? Write it down, and you'll see exactly when their disease began, or their illness, or their pain, because those are the periods where they became disconnected from their own soul, their own magic of their own being, and got caught in the world. Hi, everybody. I'm super excited to share Bioptimizer's new excellent sleep support product called Sleep Breakthrough. I've used it and my kids use it, and it's really good. It helps me sleep. It tastes great. And since it's a new product, I've got Matt here from Bioptimizers, who's one of the co-creators of the product, to give us some more information on how and why it works so well. So, Matt, how does it work so well?
Yeah, first of all, Sleep Breakthrough is a drink. You mix it about an hour before your target bedtime. You're going to feel your nervous system and your brain calm down. Your sleep latency will drop. Your desire to fall asleep will improve. Your REM's going to improve. Your heart rate will slow down, and you're going to wake up feeling awesome. The way it works is we're targeting 5 different pathways. The first one is we want to optimize your natural melatonin production. We do that by giving your body the building blocks that it needs. The first one is magnesium bisglycinate. Has been shown to naturally increase melatonin levels. Then we add cofactors like P5P, which is a bioactive form of vitamin B6. Second, we have 4 different sleep minerals that will all improve the quality of your night's sleep. First is potassium, helps quiet down neurons. Second, calcium, which improves REM and also helps transform tryptophan into serotonin, which is a building block for melatonin. Third is zinc, which is really important for the metabolism of melatonin, against a cofactor. And it also calms down the nervous system. And then last, again, is the magnesium bisglycinate. The third pathway is GABA, which is the molecule of chill. When they looked at insomniacs, they found that insomniacs were about 30% lower in GABA than people without sleep disorders. We tested pretty much every GABA on the market. We found that pharma GABA was the most powerful. The fourth pathway is we're targeting the brain. We're targeting brain waves. There's 2 molecules we can use to increase alpha brain waves and decrease beta brain waves, which is when people are struggling to fall asleep, the monkey brain's active, the hamster wheel's going, is because they have too many beta brain waves going. L-theanine and pharma GABA increase alpha brainwaves. And the last thing is glycine. Using 3 grams of glycine, which helps lower body temperature. It promotes faster sleep onset, extends REM. And my favorite part about it is if there's a night where you don't get enough sleep, you'll actually wake up feeling better and more refreshed the next day.
That's awesome. Sounds like you did a lot of research to put a real beautiful combination of synergistic supplements and ingredients together to really help people sleep. I know it works very well. And I know one of the things that's lovely is my kids love it because it tastes great. Mm-hmm. And we all need more sleep, especially in the buzz of the world today. So if you want to get your sleep breakthrough, go to sleepbreakthrough.com/CHEK in lowercase. And to get your 10% discount on your sleep breakthrough, use the code capital P, capital A, capital U, capital L 10. That's Paul 10 on checkout. Enjoy sleeping much better with Sleep Breakthrough.
I went through a point in my life where I noticed that I would sit down and I felt my heart and my body say, okay, Nate, now it's time to rest.
Yeah.
But my ego was like, we can't rest. You're in Los Angeles. We can't rest. You see this, you see the new actor who just contacted you, or these new clients, or you got this opportunity. You got to get on that. And then I was going against what my intuition was saying.
And what you were taught.
Exactly. Exactly. So as soon as I started to go against it, I started having consequences. Mm-hmm. I started getting clients that I did not want to work with. Mm-hmm. And then I came home one day and I said, okay, you know what? I looked at my girlfriend and she's an actress in Los Angeles. I said, listen, my soul wants to go home. I never went back home. I never lived in New Jersey with money in my pocket. I never lived in New Jersey without living on the streets.
Yeah.
But I started to notice that more likes, more money did not make me happy. Mm-hmm. What made me happy was being able to take my dad to lunch and us not running from the cops anymore. Because you said another thing, you can lose your creativity.
Yeah.
I had, for the first time in my life, Paul, first time in my entire life, I struggled without inspiration. Mm. And I would tell my girlfriend, you know what she'll say to me? She'll be like, find out how much Paul is. Let's pay him. Let's go work on the Paul. She would say that all the time. She's like, babe, I don't care. And sometimes she'll get like, she got tired of seeing me the way I was. And she's like, we got to find a way. You're going to go work with Paul. And then one day I told her, I said, if I go to Paul, I'm going as a victim. Paul taught me what I need to do already. I'm being victim right now. I already know what he's going to tell me.
Be your own patient.
Exactly. So I was cheating Dr. Quiet.
There you go. It doesn't work very well.
And I was cheating Dr. Happiness. Slightly Dr. Happiness, but Dr. Quiet, and as soon as you cheat one doctor, the other 3 have to compensate. And then there's only so much compensation you're going to make. Mm-hmm. And then pain comes in, right? Mr. Pain. So I know that was a long answer to your...
No, it was good. It was beautiful. And I think there's so many people in the world right now that would really benefit from hearing that on many, many levels. You know, it's easy to talk yourself out of your potential because you think that your circumstances are a good excuse to not have to be who you came to be in the world, right? It's easy. People with a fraction of the stress in their childhood that you lived through are right now sitting somewhere making excuses about if their mommy and daddy had only done more of this for me or more of that for me, or if I only had this or someone only gave me that, and so they're, rotting in themselves while the world awaits their genius.
The things that, I went through in my life that helped me be who I am today was just keeping my mind on who I want to become.
Yeah.
And
that's the dream.
Exactly. So when you used to say, I remember when I was taking the fungal infection course, it's like, you're not going to be the fungal infection until you have a dream. I'm like, oh, here we go with this shit. Because at the time I wanted the answers. What do I want? What can I take? And then I started to learn, like, when I deal with my clients now, I'm like, what is your dream? They're like, don't tell me about my dream. Tell me what herb do I take to get rid of this fungal infection? Because there's so much power behind the dream. I could teach you everything, but if you don't have a reason to change for it, you're never going to change.
You know, the problem, as you surely know by now, with that whole model, I can tell you lots of things to take for a fungal infection or anything else.
Mm-hmm.
Problem is those are treating the symptoms of the fungal infection. Those aren't treating what led you to being immune compromised enough to be seen as an organism that isn't contributing to nature.
Mm.
You know, funguses, bacteria, and parasites do not play favorites. You're either vital enough to contribute, or you need to be transformed into nutrients for those little beings that are contributing. So the question is, how did I get depleted enough, fatigued enough, and inflamed enough to be recognized as food for organisms that nature uses to dismantle the beings that are no longer capable of contributing to the growth and vitality of the world? And so if a person does not have a dream bigger than their problem, then they don't have a reason to make the changes. So if you keep medicating yourself with cookies, junk food, alcohol, whatever it is that's medicating you to compensate for the story you keep telling yourself about why you have to do this or do that, or why you can't do this or why you can't do that, then what happens is you're not actually addressing the story. You're addressing the symptoms of the story. So if you know, this is why I say if you have a big enough dream, you don't need a crisis. If a person does not have something to focus on that they want from their heart that inspires them to make the changes, to make sure that they're moving toward the realization of that expression of themselves, then the only thing they're living for is the very thing that's feeding the fungus, the parasites, and the bacteria. So now they work all day, but what they're really thinking about is their 2 glasses of wine in their soap opera, or their cookies, or their whatever it is, their coffee. Maybe the only thing they get to celebrate life is the half an hour in the coffee shop with their friends before they go do something that they don't really want to do but think they have to do because that's the way they've conditioned themselves to believe they're going to make money. So if you don't anchor yourself in the dream, you only have one other option, and that's to decide what the nightmare is. You know, if you don't have a clear dream, then you got to figure out what your nightmare is and make that your dream. So if it's I'm financially strapped all the time, then put your heart and soul into figuring out how to resolve that and look at what got you there so you don't keep doing it. But once you have a dream that's bigger than your crisis, now you have, in what quantum physics is called, an attractor factor. You have an attractor, sometimes a strange attractor it's called. So, you know, in your own story, you saw that you were reaching for basketball, reaching for football, reaching for, okay, I'm in pain now, what's next? So when you hold that image in your mind, you're actually creating a mental being called Nate Ortiz, who is in the mental dimension. And as you embody that idea with more clarity, okay, Nate's going to play basketball, and this is how he's going to get there, and this is who his coach is going to be, and he's going to get the scholarship. Every time you do that, it starts having more mass, more mental mass. Mass has inertia. It draws things to it, right? All you got to do to prove that to yourself is take a quarter, a nickel, and a dime and put them in a triangle shape, and then hang a pendulum right in the middle of them, and it'll start swinging. But it'll always swing most toward the biggest coin, second most toward the smallest coin, and least most toward the littlest coin. Because mass has gravitational influence, and the pendulum's feeling the pull of the mass. So if you then say, okay, I'm creating mass in my mind, it actually starts pulling on you, just like that quarter pulls the pendulum more than a nickel or a dime. And so that becomes an attractor factor. So what you're doing is each day you're breathing into, you're becoming more and more. So the strange thing is you're developing the future Nate in your mind, but then you're emulating that idea. So you are actually adding the mass in your physical life that you're also adding with your mental clarity. And so the psyche dresses itself in the dream. And that's how a mind works. And the entire universe is the physical manifestation of God dreaming.
That's deep.
That's the truth. God's not thinking it into existence, because to think you have to have a duality. And since God is a unity, see, for me to think, I have to think about something. But if you're God, there's nothing to think about, because there's nothing but you.
Yeah.
So God, 0, unconditional love; 1, the unity, being and non-being; 2, duality, mind. So God has nothing to love, so it looks into itself and begins to dream just like you did. And it dreams, I think I would like to try, coming from some really unfortunate circumstances, and to make it so I truly understand everybody, I think I'll take on a biracial body, and I'll start in an environment that makes it really clear for me what doesn't work for the long run, and I'll give myself some circumstances to let me know when I'm moving in the wrong direction. And so every being from the microorganisms in the soil is God dreaming part of its own unfolding. And since that's been going on for infinity, I mean, we think the universe is 13 point something billion years old, but that's just the newest edition of the dream. That's, you can't use time when you're talking about God. That means you're still stuck in your head. The point being, though, God dreams itself into existence so that it has something to love, because God, by definition, is that for which there is no other. So God can't love anything but itself. So God dreams Nate into existence and recognizes Nate in the dream and said, oh, look at my beautiful dream. This guy's going to help a lot of the pieces of me that don't realize they have a key role in my play. And so there's this relationship. Now here's where the magic starts. The moment God recognizes Nate in God's dream and begins to communicate with Nate, now there's a lover and a beloved. And the moment Nate recognizes himself or anyone else in the dream, now you have a flow of energy and information from Nate to the beloved, which is his beloved, which is God, or to anybody else. And that's how a mind is born. Whenever two characters in the dream recognize each other and begin to share love, the flow of energy and information through empathic and compassionate connection to self or other, you have mind. So when God looks into God's dream, God has nothing else to love but his dream or her dream, its dream. And so the instant God recognizes itself, there's a connection made, but God falls in love with God's own illusion and says, oh, I love Nate. And by loving Nate, there's a relationship created which causes a mind. And so what happens is the two co-create together, right? So when I did the painting for you and wrote the letter, I actually just said to God, which part of me am I painting for? Which part of God? And what am I supposed to say to this part of me right now? And so I just transcribed. But the key point here is God cannot mind until God dreams, because there's nothing to mind until there's a dream. And you can't have a mind without a duality. And the duality is an illusion, because if God is God, there is no way to have a duality. You understand that? If God is everything and everyone, then there is only a unity. So the illusion is the duality. But without the duality, you can't have a sense of self, right? Without duality, I couldn't be interviewing you. I'd be interviewing myself, and God would have nobody to love. So paradoxically, the nature of relationship is that it allows love to exist. And if you didn't have an ego, how could your girlfriend love you? And if you didn't have an ego, how would you know it was you loving her? So the paradox of all this is that love and mind are basically mirrors of each other. And if you don't like what's in your mind, then change what you love. And that's why the dream is ultimately an expression of the love that inspires your mind to create something more beautiful than what you created last time. And that's the secret.
Man, my brain is twisted right now.
Well, the thing is,
That's deep.
Here's the secret. Stop using your brain. If you just listen with your heart, when I say that you're here because God dreamed you into existence so that God could have love and co-create with you, and that whatever you dream becomes a magnetic force that draws you toward it to the degree that you are honest about that dream. And in that process, God is co-creating itself with you, because God needs to have love, because there is no one for God to love unless God creates companions to love. So God creates the illusion of separation so that God can love unconditionally. The condition that's the illusion is Nate, Paul, girlfriend, mom, dad, brother, sister, bad guy, good guy. And so that's the illusion. But the illusion allows us to become aware of our role in the unfolding of God. Because without this, God cannot know itself. So the universe is a living mirror of God. And everybody in it is God. And the reason your mind has a hard time wrapping itself around that is because you're thinking. And if you're thinking, you're engaging the duality. But if you just listen to your heart, you connect to the unity. You see the difference. That's the difference between love and thinking. Thinking is just information. But love is about a relationship. There's a big difference.
Yeah, 100%.
You can think all day long about, how fast an electron moves around an atom, or how you're going to mobilize somebody's spine, but it may not make you feel more connected. But if you come to the realization that you couldn't be here without the birds, the bees, the flowers, and the trees, you can say, wow, that's a lot of love out there. And then the love will take you to where you need to go to co-create with your mind, so that your mind is actually being used to create more love instead of just more goddamn information. Hi, everybody. One of my favorite Symbiotica products, which I love to use when you got two kids in the house that bring home all sorts of stuff from school and have runny noses and coughs like kids often do. So if I need a little backup, I get out my Symbiotica liposomal vitamin C. Tastes great, feels great. I use it regularly. And it's just a good backup plan to support your immune system. But better yet, I've got Shervine, the creator of the product, right here to tell us more about it. So Shervine, what's unique about your liposomal vitamin C?
Well, this has evolved over the years. This is our 9th iteration, and this is coming from fermented cassava, not coming from corn. And it's in liposomal form, and we also have added compounds in there, including biotin and potassium bicarbonate, which is a very highly absorbing form of potassium. This right here is delicious.
It is
Okay.
delicious.
You know, we're using organic vanilla and organic extracts and citrus bioflavonoids, and you're getting 1,000 milligrams of fermented vitamin C in liposomal form. So we're talking about pure absorption. So if you're, you know, you got the everyday cold, or you're feeling the chills, or you just need a boost in your immune system, boom, you can hit that right there. It's good for children. It's good for, you know, elderly. Anyone can have it. And it is one of my favorite products.
Or if you're going to go on an airplane or being around a lot of people that aren't healthy and you just want a little immune backup or immune boost.
Absolutely. That's delicious, high absorbing, and gets to the subcellular level almost immediately.
And kids love it.
Kids love it. I haven't met anyone that doesn't like the flavor.
It's beautiful.
Yep.
So to get your Living 4D discount, go to Symbiotica.com. That's Symbiotika.com. To get your 15% discount on checkout, use the code capital L, number 4, capital D, 15. Enjoy your Symbiotica liposomal vitamin C. When I hear you telling the story of you being half black and half white, and basically you were getting racial treatment from the black people and from the white people. The paradox of it is what does it take for people to actually see that we're all an expression of the earth, and we're all an expression of the cosmos, and that if you take the skin off, you wouldn't recognize who was what race. It's just a surface thing. And then people forget that without the different colors of the skin that represents the races, which represents the cultures, which represents the diversity, what would music be like if we only had black music or Mexican music or Jamaican music or Chinese music or white people's music? It would be boring as hell, right? We would be so excited to hear somebody play music differently, and that's what music is. It's everybody. I mean, look at Elvis and a lot of the Rolling Stones. All these guys studied the great black blues artists and didn't care about the color. They just loved the music, and it became part of them. It just seems such a strange and sad paradox that people continue to do to other people exactly what they didn't want done to them. And the truth of it is, in my opinion, because you're half black and half white, it means you should have twice as big of a family.
Yeah.
Doesn't it?
No, it does. It does. And you also see this. The funny thing is you'll also see this in even the Hispanic communities, right? In, like, for an example, Dominican Republic. You have Dominican Republic and then you have Haiti. You can find Dominicans are dark. I people mistaken me for Dominican because if you study how Dominicans actually came about, they're mixed with European and African, like I am. You can find dark Dominicans being racist towards light Dominicans. They're the same culture. So yeah, I find it, you know, one thing I learned from a young age is, I remember this day like it was yesterday. I went to a bus stop. I was with my father. My father's a black man with an afro. The bus driver was hesitant on letting my dad on the bus. And I saw the judgment. I saw how and I was probably like 5, 6 years old. Then I went and I saw the attitude and you know, the attitude towards me and my mother differently than I saw it with my father and me.
Right.
And they treated my mom like, you know, an angel. My mom's a white woman, green eyes. But little did they know that the guy who was black was actually the most sweetest guy in the world. And the person that you hated was one of the meanest people you could come across.
I mean, the person they loved in your mother.
Exactly. Yeah. So, you know, one thing that I've noticed is, like, when people, I just think it's a lot of, I like to really take my focus and keep it away from distractions. And I feel like it is a huge distraction, and there's a lot of victim archetype that goes on with it.
Yeah.
Because if you're not, you know, you never know what I can do for you, you can do for me, right? If you're limiting yourself for having a conversation with somebody or doing something based on the color of their skin, I immediately saw, like, oh, you're limiting your ability to grow into love. And you got a lot of work to do. So you can say the mean things you want to me or you want, but I can't say anything back to you that's going to hurt you enough than the growth that you have to face.
Because when I heard you describe your story to the lady,
Sahara Rose?
yes, as I was listening to the story, I was listening to it while I was lifting weights. It just hit me. I'm like, I've got to tell the story of Kabir to Nate. The very quick story of Kabir, because I think it's important for everybody that has racial tone in them, sadly, is that Kabir was the child of a Muslim and a Hindu parent. So he's just like you. And he is from India. I wish I had time to tell you the whole story, because how Kabir ultimately got to be with his master and what happened when he was with his master is quite a story in itself. But to jump to the punchline of it all, Kabir was a weaver. And when Kabir became a spiritual teacher, the first thing he told people is, listen, hiding in caves is a cop-out. Anybody can go hide in a cave. You aren't really living a spiritual life until you're in the world and you're living your teachings on a day-to-day basis. And he also said all this celibacy is just another game that people play. Have kids, have a family, and do the work of being in the world and supporting the world, or you're just playing games. The other game that Kabir refused to play, as you know, India has a very strong caste system. So you've got, the untouchables at the bottom and the Brahmins at the top, and then the workers, and the whole structure of the caste system in India, which is still alive and kicking today. So when because Kabir had suffered the same exact situation you did, where he couldn't get accepted by the Muslims because he had half Hindu in him, and he couldn't get accepted by the Hindus because he was half Muslim. So when Kabir started teaching, and he would just sit in a park and where he would weave, and people would come sit and talk to him, and one thing led to another, and it grew and it grew and it grew. Well, the first thing that he never did was he would let anybody sit with him. He would have untouchables right next to Brahmins. But in India, if a Brahmin even touches an untouchable, they have to burn their clothes and go through this whole ritual, because it's like they're poisoned for life kind of thing. So they don't want them anywhere near them. So it creates this huge class division, just like we now have the 1% billionaires and the rest of us, right? There's massive class division. So because Kabir was such a profound teacher and really could help you see the truth of what God was and what spirituality was and how to live it and answer anybody's questions, he started getting this huge following. In fact, it was so big that it started to threaten a lot of the higher ups that want people in their specific religion or in their specific caste. And it got so bad that the Brahmins, which is would be like the Bill Gateses and the George Soros and the people like that getting together saying, we got to get rid of this guy because it'd be like them going after J.P. Sears for telling too much truth or something, So they ultimately decided they had to kill him. And even though some of them were students of his, the pressure on them was so great that they had to bow down, or they too might get killed for not supporting them. It'd be like getting kicked out of your own boys' club. So they put a plan together, and their plan was they got a soldier from the army to bring a war elephant, and they sent spies out to follow Kabir to find out, what his path was every day, where was the best way to capture him and kill him. So once they figured it out, then they had this warrior take the war elephant and confront Kabir, and the elephant was commanded to kill him. And these elephants will trample people like nothing. They're trained war elephants. That's what they're trained to do. The elephant wouldn't budge.
Wow.
So the warrior that was in command of the elephant started beating the elephant, and he literally was beating it, and the elephant would not attack Kabir. It wouldn't even move. And this went on until the guy realized there's no way I'm going to get this elephant to do it. He will not do it. So he went back and reported, which to them was unheard of, because these are highly trained war elephants. So they said, well, what are we going to do now? So they cooked up another plan. It just so happened that one of the route that Kabir would take on his daily walk from his home to go into town where he would work as a weaver and do all his teaching, he had to cross this bridge that went across this raging river. And so they sent a couple of guys out. They waited for him on the bridge. They captured him. They wrapped his arms and legs behind his back in chains and threw him off the bridge into this, raging river. And a few minutes later, they looked down the river and they saw him get up and walk out, and the chains were gone. So he walked out, and they thought, what in the hell is going on with this guy? So they had to go back and report to the Brahmins that they had chained him and threw him in the river, and somehow he escaped the chains and just got out and walked away. And he didn't even seem to act like he even cared. It was just like flies buzzing his head. So then they sat down and cooked up their next plan. And so in India, as you know, they have funeral pyres and they burn people at their death. And it's it's the way they do it. They have open cremations right out in the open. So they waited till the day that they were going to do all these cremations, and they built this huge funeral pyre and lit it on fire, and it was hot and ready. And so they captured Kabir. If I remember right, they tied him up, but they threw him into this huge bonfire. And shortly thereafter, Kabir walked out of the fire. And not only did he walk out of the fire, there was not a burn on him. He was wearing white clothes, and there wasn't a single mark of soot or anything on his body. And so they realized at that moment that he was a saint. And so the Brahmins realized that they were actually trying to kill a man of God, a true God man. And so then they ordained him a saint and left him alone.
Yeah. This sounds like a mythology, right?
Well, it's actually not.
I know.
Kabir was, I think, 14th century, so it's not that long ago.
Wow.
The reason I brought the story up is because here's a guy who devoted himself to bringing people together and did not want all this class stuff and racial stuff. And because he had half Muslim in him, he could understand those people. And because he was half Hindu, he could understand those people, but he could see where they were both blind. So he bridged the gap for them. So I think, maybe the story relates to you, and maybe that's why you chose to be biracial, so that you could bridge the gap for people.
Definitely. I can see the power behind that. And being biracial taught me polarity from a young age.
Yes.
I understood the power of polarity. So I was like, okay. I definitely chose it. I definitely feel within my heart, I definitely chose that.
What's your birthday?
June 26th.
So you are the hermit in tarot. Your soul path and your personality path are the hermit. The hermit is someone who needs to isolate himself to master his craft so he can bring it to the world.
That sounds like me.
And so, since your girlfriend's here, just know hermits have to have enough time alone to do their inner work, or they don't do well in relationships because they feel as though the relationship is a distraction from what they're really here to do. My son, Paul Jr., is also a hermit. So anyhow, you might want to study the hermit.
I will.
I highly recommend Angeles Arian's tarot book. I'll show it to you later. But I was just curious what your soul path and personality path were. And the hermit is really someone that comes to the world to devote themselves to mastery. And once they've achieved it, then their function is to make sure everybody in the world benefits from their hard journey into mastery. I'm curious, where do you feel the desire to help other people that's so strong in you comes from?
I think two things. I think number one, I felt like I was born with it, to be honest with you. It was just natural. Like I was literally born with it.
Yeah.
Like I came into this world just ready to want to help people. Number two, I think witnessing so much pain at a young age and, realizing the pain that, that my parents were going through, even though some of it had, when my mom came out in anger, when my dad came out with just, overworking on the streets trying to make a living. And then the pain that I saw in my friends' eyes for not, being able to have money to get the things they wanted, or me to get food I wanted. My number one goal was, how can I help a person feel better? Because I feel like I have a high tolerance for pain. And it felt like, I say this a lot to myself. I felt like I've been here so many times before.
You probably have. I know I sure as hell have. And I've said to my soul, I need a long rest after this trip.
Yeah.
So don't even try it.
Yeah.
I'm not coming back for a while.
I always felt like that since I was a kid. It feels like I'm 29, but I feel like I'm 70 because of the life that I lived. So I think it comes from wanting to see people see the good side. I train my mind to, when negative things come, to train my mind to look for positive things.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the more that we lean on to those negative things, the more that we start to bring more negativity to our reality, right? We manifest it. So I think from deep down inside, two things. I just think that I was born with it. And number two, I saw what pain looks like,
Mm-hmm.
and I understand it. And I want the opposite for others, even though I know pain is a teacher for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
If it brings my heart joy seeing someone else happy.
The other thing, too, is if you haven't learned this, you will. You can't take people's pain away from them. You can teach them how to take their pain away. Like as a therapist, you come to me with a back injury or a neck injury, I can take your pain away, but if you don't do the things that I teach you to do so that your pain doesn't keep coming back, then I just become your next favorite drug, which means now I have a codependent relationship with you and I'm not being a therapist anymore. I'm a rent-a-friend. Or I'm an expensive analgesic. So, our job as therapists, coaches, and healthcare providers isn't to take people's pain away. It's to help them recognize what choices they made, which are the products of the beliefs they had or the fears they had that led to the behaviors that ultimately created the pain. So, it's always lovely to help people get rid of their pain, but when you've been a therapist as long as I have and you start seeing how getting rid of people's pain can become a limitation to them doing the work to get rid of their own pain, I got to the point where my rule as a therapist, I won't do anything for a client that they can do for themselves. If they can't mobilize their own spine, which is a technical skill, I will do that. But if I can show them how to do that at home, I'm going to teach them how to do it. So, because people get addicted to having their pain taken away by any means, and I don't want to be anyone's addiction, and I went through years of experiencing what that's like. Professional athletes, for example, buying up 6 months of time from me in advance and saying, never give my spot away, because they wanted me to take their pain away, right? And so what happened was I would have all this space that was all bought up. They would miss half their appointments, but I wouldn't be able to fill the spot with someone that really did need my help. You spent a fair bit of time studying myriads of my videos. You're now in HLC 3, which is our highest level of holistic lifestyle coaching. I'm just curious if you could synthesize what the core message of my teachings is. If you had to distill it down to maybe one sentence, what would you say it ultimately means to be a Chek professional? What is the core teaching?
Wow. That's a challenge because it's a lot, but I'll tell you what I feel. It taught me on how to know myself, how to take care of myself, and how to navigate myself.
Perfect.
That's exactly what it did. So even though there were times in my life I kind of knew myself, there was times where I didn't know how to navigate.
Mm-hmm.
Right? My mind not being as attentive to my work because of attention disorder or anger issues or my weight or my skin. So then when I put all my attention there, then I start losing who I am myself.
Yeah.
The Chek Institute has taught me the principles on how to keep everything aligned.
Yeah, good.
So I can continue to go on my journey in a balanced way and get where I want to get to.
I feel like I've done my life's work. I can die now. Except I got little kids that need to be taught everything Nate has learned.
Mm-hmm.
You've had a very powerful relationship with the internet and, using video. How important do you feel the internet is today for all forms of healthcare providers, from psychologists to everybody that has something to share with the public, especially because, a lot of Chek professionals got themselves in big trouble financially when the lockdowns came because they were too insecure or not creative enough to reinvent themselves in ways that they could support people while in a lockdown situation. But then there was other ones that said, oh, well, I'm just going to keep coaching my clients, and ended up having a great time and continued to help people and didn't lose money and didn't, have the kind of problems that those that gave up on themselves and didn't reinvent themselves had. So I'm just curious, how important do you feel the internet is, not only for you, but for all of us that are trying to make changes in the world at this time?
I think it's extremely important. I would have never been here sitting talking to you if you didn't use the internet, right?
Right. That's true. Thank you.
So like I got availability to your work because of the internet. So, I come to the HLC, when I came to HLC 2 and 3, I did witness a lot of, the students that became good friends of mine go through the struggle, because I went through HLC 2 during COVID.
Right.
And I witnessed a lot of my peers struggling. I think a lot of it has to do with insecurities. One of the biggest things that I see is that I think some of us put so much pressure on ourselves that we have to be extremely smart and extremely 100% correct on everything that we do, that pressure stops a person from actually making a video and helping somebody.
Mm-hmm.
It's important, because what I've learned in my experience of it, and I've learned this from Yo Elliott, to be quite honest with you.
Good.
He said, even if you're teaching the same thing someone else is teaching, your story is different.
Yes.
So your story is going to attract someone to want to listen to what you have to say more than someone else.
Right.
That's number one. Number two, we need more people that are helping the world on the internet, because we have a lot of people who are taking advantage of the internet that don't have the amount of knowledge that most of the people that are listening to this podcast do. So either way, the internet gets to people, if you like it or not, and it helps more people. So as I'm sitting here talking to you and you're talking to me, someone's listening to one of the other podcast episodes, right?
Yeah.
So I think if someone's out there listening and you're hesitant on getting on the internet, there's only one of you ever, right? Yeah. And the way you talk, the way you walk, your story it can have an impact on someone else without you even knowing. So the information that you have, a lot of people won't want to give information because they think they need to know everything. You can help someone that doesn't know as much as you know.
Yes.
You don't have to be perfect,
I was teaching HLC 3, and they unanimously said, we all don't think we know enough to start working with clients yet. You can help anybody that you know more than, and if you are already even in HLC 1, you know more than 98% of the world population.
Yes.
So, and you don't ever know anything until you practice it.
Mm-hmm.
I always say knowledge is not power. Applied knowledge is power.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the people that happened to raise their hands when I started questioning, why are you not practicing, was a person who was, a bit overweight.
Mm-hmm.
And I said to them, why are you not practicing? They said, well, I'm still too fat. And I said, well, I've got a question for you. When you started HLC 1, how much did you weigh? They'd lost like 160 pounds or something. I mean, a huge amount of weight. I can't remember the exact number, but a huge amount. Mm-hmm. And they were maybe 40 pounds from their target. I said, how many people in the world weigh more than you right now? Mm-hmm. Well, millions. Mm-hmm. Millions. I said, so you can show them where you were at, you can show them where you're at now, and you can tell them about where you're going and take them on the journey for you, because of the millions of people that weigh more than you, I bet you a lot of them would absolutely love to be where you're at right now. Exactly. And you've already proven you can get there.
Exactly.
So I said, don't ever let me see you again unless you're practicing. Do not take another class.
Yeah. Yeah.
Go practice.
Yeah. I understand that pressure because I had that on me the first time. And then I just, fear of criticism is one of the things you're going to go through when you make videos. And, here's how I came across it. I had this fear of criticism in my life because my father would watch my videos and he would send me a text message saying, you said this wrong. He's still correcting me like I'm that little boy.
Yeah.
And that was hitting the little boy within me. And I'm like, I became self-defensive. So before I started making videos, I started to notice that I was hesitant.
Uh-huh.
And then if I mess up, I have to start the whole thing over. And I didn't want nobody to see my flaws.
Yeah.
So I remember waking up one day and I felt like I was carrying like this dead weight inside of me.
Yeah.
And I felt like I started having a little bit of a sugar addiction. And then I remember I was like, I think I know what this is. It's me allowing the fear of criticism to kill my purpose, rather than me being okay with the criticism and living my purpose.
Yeah.
So as soon as I said, which one would I rather have? Live my whole life, feel like I'm dying each day, or live my life doing what I love and getting criticized for it? I chose doing what I love.
That's then you're making love every day instead of worrying about everybody else's opinion. I tell people all the time, look, opinions are like assholes. Everyone's got one, and most of them don't smell very good. So let them criticize away. The other thing, too, is inside of ourselves, we always have room for genuine criticism, because genuine criticism is actually constructive criticism, and it's helpful, right? It's just when people are being rude, I've had a million nasty emails from rude people. But what helped me is I just realized that rude people are broken people. And so instead of getting irritated at them and wanting to smack them and treat them like I used to treat guys in the boxing ring that acted like smartasses, then I just say a little prayer for them and hope one day they wake up and realize what's right in front of them. Hi, everybody. I hope you're enjoying the show. One of the most amazing things we can do for ourselves is actually to get high-quality, raw, green, unprocessed vegetables into our body. And one of the things that I find amazing is Organifi's green juice. In fact, it's so amazing, I brought Drew Canoli, the creator of the product, to tell us what is unique about it. Drew, that is an amazing drink. How does it work? What does it do? Why is it so special?
Well, first of all, Paul, we went through 52 iterations to get the current formulation of green juice, and we're always increasing the value in it. One of the biggest things we did is we actually added 600 milligrams of ashwagandha, full spectrum. So it's a completely higher level of ashwagandha, which actually has been shown in clinicals, and we have dozens of clinicals on this, that has actually been shown to lower stress.
Yes.
Is the big thing.
Ashwagandha is something I've used for years, even with my clients for stress management.
Yep. So when you drink ashwagandha, it puts you in the green juice, it puts you in a meditative space. And we start at first thing in the morning drinking green juice. And because of the adaptogen in it, after 30 to 60 days of continual use, it makes such a big difference in your life. You're getting all the vegetables that are glyphosate residue free.
Yes.
They're organic, right? Highest quality that you could ever imagine. We got the spirulina and the chlorella, which is so important with all the different frequencies that are entering our environment today to help you detox from those.
Yes.
The green juice is bar none my favorite product at Organifi. And the best part about it is it tastes incredible.
Yes, it does. It's good. And I know my kids love it. So that's always the litmus test.
Yeah, it's like a matcha latte that you have first thing in the morning. And with the ashwagandha, lowering your stress, you feel it all day long. It gives you this internal wealth of energy.
It's just mixed with water. You mix it, and now is the green juice one you can mix with hot water, or is it best cold?
A lot of people actually prefer it with hot water. Some people will grab their favorite kind of oat milk or almond milk, something like that, and they'll add it to it. And we've gotten thousands of testimonials from all over the world. People start their day with green juice, and it makes such a big difference in their life.
Well, that's fantastic. So if you want to get your green juice, which I highly recommend, go to Organifi.com. That's Organifi, Organifi.com. And on checkout, Living 4D listeners get 20% off if you use the code capital C, capital H, capital E, capital K, 20. You will not be disappointed. I'm curious if you can do this. This is a deep question. What do you think is your greatest fear in your life? If you had to say, if there's one fear that haunts me, what would that be?
Not mastering my purpose.
Okay.
So not becoming the person I imagine becoming.
Okay. And what would be the worst thing that would happen if you didn't do that?
I feel like when I wake up in the morning, I have this invisible string pulling me towards something. And that string gives me feelings of feeling high, happy, and clear on why I'm here. If I don't do that, then I'm not getting that pull of that string. And then I feel like, I'm going to be completely honest with you, it's boring here.
Okay. And what would be the worst thing that happened if it got boring here?
I won't become the person that I'm destined to become, and I won't be able to help my family and the people that I vision helping. Because if I don't do it, who's going to do it? If I don't figure out a way to take care of my family, then who will? And then the cycle repeats.
Mm-hmm.
But as soon as I made things happen, everything changed. So I have this sense of responsibility. I felt this sense of responsibility since I was a kid, that if I do this thing the right way, not only am I changing my life, but I'm going to be changing my family's and a lot of people's lives that I don't even know, that listen to me or watch me or just hear the story.
So what you're telling me is your greatest fear is not being able to help people.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good way to sum it up. Yeah.
What would happen if you couldn't help people?
People struggle.
And what would happen if people struggled?
I feel like they won't be able to live their purpose.
What would happen if they don't live their purpose?
Then if they don't live their purpose, then it's kind of like going against the evolution, right? The progression or elevation of consciousness. If I didn't become who I became, then my brother would have never became who he became, right? Then we're bringing more. If I didn't become who I became, then I would have probably become a drug addict or a drug dealer or in jail or dead. So I did nothing for the earth. And then my brother would have repeated that cycle. And then our kids probably would have repeated that cycle. So we're not actually contributing towards the evolution in the positive way.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like I've seen all the negative ways of how people they contributed by not following their purpose or by not doing what they felt like they wanted to do, not going for their dream.
What do you think would be the worst thing that would happen if we stopped evolving?
We won't be here.
And what would be the worst thing that would happen if we weren't here?
I wouldn't know. That's a deep question.
I think you do know. You just don't know that you know.
Hold on, let me think.
Because you go to sleep every night and you're not here.
That's true.
You're somewhere else. If we're not here, where would we be?
Somewhere else.
And where would that be?
Where we originally came from.
And who would you be with then?
God.
Ah.
Mm-hmm.
So you see, we've resolved your greatest fear, haven't we?
Is my fear not wanting to be with God?
No, your greatest fear is that we won't evolve.
Oh, yes.
But the actual effect of not evolving is that we all die and we end up right back where we came from. Which is in a state of unconditional love. So there's a reason I did this with you. If you realize that the worst thing that can happen is that we don't evolve and we end up back with God again, you have to say, what's more important to God? The act of evolution or the creative expression of the dance and the art and the play of life?
Okay, that was great.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I see exactly what you're saying.
What I'm saying is, what your own process just hopefully awakened in you is that God's not the head of a corporation trying to achieve a bottom line. God is authentically dreaming itself into existence for the experience of having love and creating and dancing and singing and enjoying the magic and the mystery of life and enjoying being alone with all of itself And the reason I took you through this exercise was to share something with you that it took me a lot longer than you to learn. Because if you keep being the CEO of God's corporation, it's going to really hurt when you find out that God's not incorporated. And that you don't have to work your employees to make sure they get the product that you call their life mission, because the pain teacher always comes to guide them. And the worst thing that happens is they die and realize who they are. And they go, well, they either go, holy shit, I fucked that up, I got to do it better next time. Or they go, what an amazing freaking joke that was. Or what a party, or what a dance, or what a show. Or, wow, I really played the role of the victim beautifully. I'm so impressed with how well I did that. I played the poor me. I played the superstar, whatever. I did it all beautifully. So, because I see a lot of eros in you, a lot of outgoing fire, a lot of conquer, accomplish, because you come from a similar background with a similar mindset that I do, I'm hoping everybody listening identifies what their greatest fear is, and they keep asking themselves, which, by the way, I learned this from studying Mark Wu Lin's work. There's a great book called It Didn't Start With You. And it's all about your genetic history and how it can really be influencing you for better or for worse. But when you keep asking yourself, what's the worst thing that would happen if my greatest fear happened? When you get to an impasse, you've now resolved your greatest fear. So your greatest fear, when it's resolved, leads to you being in a state of unconditional love. So the question is, should you be that afraid for everybody and that they don't evolve, because ultimately they all just end up right back at God again? And what do? We sit in a circle around the campfire and we say, what do we want to do next? And we recreate it, and we all pretend that we're not God. And one says, well, I'm going to be the guy that criticizes people with half race, and I'm going to be the Malcolm X, and one says I'm going to be Gandhi, and the other one says, well, I'm going to be Madonna, and I'm going to be the superhero, and some very brave creature says I'll be Jesus, and another one says, well, I'll be the devil, because what's the point of Jesus without a devil? Poor Jesus had nothing to do. His role in the play would be no good. And so I think, if we realize that life is really art, music, dance, theater, celebration, an act of love, co-creation, and we recognize that it's the divine in everything, from the birds and the bees to the flowers and the trees, then we will be less oriented towards accomplishing objectives, because a lot of the times our desire to accomplish objectives is so strong that we're willing to stand on people's heads to do it, or kill people to do it. I mean, all we got to do is look at Gates, Fauci, Soros, Biden, every president of CEO of a vaccine corporation, any doctor that did not follow the Hippocratic Oath. They're willing to stand on heads to meet an objective and even kill people to do it, because they are caught in a fear. And their fear might be, if I don't do this, I won't have enough money to feed my family. So they have to block out the fact that what they're doing is immoral and unethical and can kill somebody's family. And that's the danger of orienting your life toward an objective.
Let me ask you a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Say if you were around that campfire and you said you wanted to be Paul Chek.
Yeah, I did.
Right? But you come here and you don't follow the exact steps to become Paul Chek, then what happens?
Then I find myself feeling like I am living in a way that doesn't reflect who I came to be. I feel like my life has no meaning. You can tell when you're not following your soul's guidance, because life loses its meaning. Without meaning, there's no way for the currency of love to flow. See, if there was no meaning for you to be here having this podcast, how would it be different?
Hmm.
Would you have flown all the way from Boston to come see me and sit here and talk for a couple of hours?
No.
So you see, meaning is what gives love currency. So whenever we're not listening to our soul, our inner guidance, or our heart, to keep it simple, our life starts to lose meaning. And when our life starts to lose meaning, if we don't orient ourselves toward the exploration to find what's meaningful to us, then what we do is we start drugging ourselves, or we get addictions to distract us from identifying what is meaningful to us. And then when we find out what was meaningful to us and we do it, we realize that all the pain and all the addictions makes us much more empathetic to everybody else that has lost their sense of meaning. In other words, God's like a Mexican finger trap. You get trapped, but the harder you pull, the harder it is to get out. But when you just let go and say, how do I share my love? Suddenly you can pull your finger out. So anyhow, sorry to give you that little
No, that was awesome.
surprise therapy session. I think now that we've addressed your greatest fear, you might listen to your girlfriend more when she wants you to spend more time with her.
Listen, all the things that we went over today, she's gonna have these notes ready to go as soon as we get home. As soon as we're done with this.
Well, good. She
remember what Paul told you? I'm like, oh man, come on. She'll be a nice reminder.
Yes, well, she's the keel on your sailboat. You're like a giant sail. My sailboat has two sails on it. One's me and one's Angie. And Penny's the keel that keeps us all from blowing ourselves right onto shore or hitting rocks or, working ourselves to death or whatever. So, your sail's so big that if she doesn't anchor you, you will blow over. Well, I'm going to share something wise that Osho once said. Listen carefully. If you want to be a star, you better learn to play with fire, because stars burn out and they explode. And that beautiful woman over there, she's your water. And she will keep you from burning out or exploding, so you can keep shining your light until you say, time to go home and love unconditionally. Here's an interesting question that I cooked up for you, being that the background that you come from is why I put this in here. How do you feel that people that are too poor, who are often suffering from malnutrition, from eating poor quality, discount store food, can enhance their nutrition and lifestyle so they can maximize their health, immune function, and ultimately their creativity, which is a catalyst to effective problem solving? So the point is, there's a lot of people that say they don't have enough money to eat organic food or can't afford this, or, I'm sure you've heard the story over and over again, right?
Yeah.
So what do you feel that they can do?
The first thing that, the more poor a person is coming from, like me, when I first heard your work, you said you need to eat organic, and I was eating out of a cafeteria in college. This is my first time I got my hands on food. And I'm like, it can't be much of a difference. But immediately when I went from eating junk food to getting some type of quality food, I noticed a shift in how I felt, how I looked, how my skin, how my mind. And then I started to understand, like, oh, wow, what I do with my money, I have two ways of thinking. I teach my clients. Money, are you spending or are you investing? And I'm not talking about investing to make more money. I'm talking about investing into energy.
Yeah, investing into yourself.
Exactly. So spending money, if you spend money on a pair of shoes that's $80, but you can get a pair for $40, and their shoes is not going to do anything special for you. If you could take that extra $40 and you can buy, more groceries that we can have more energy than to provide more service and do more things for yourself, is that helping or hurting you? Oh, that's helping me. Okay. So anytime you spend money, you're not getting anything in return for yourself.
Right.
But every time you invest money, you get something in return. So the mindset of a person who comes from no money, even when they have money in their bank account, they can still be poor mentally based on how they make decisions about food. So we break down their problems and we see most of their problems come from not having enough energy.
Yeah.
And then not enough energy makes you procrastinate, then makes you not have enough time, which then makes you go in this nasty, vicious circle. So the first thing I would do is bring awareness and then get them more closer to whole food. And then awareness and whole food gives more energy, then provides more service, which makes more money to afford better quality food for themselves.
Yeah. For those of you that are listening, should you know anybody or be in a situation where you don't think you have enough money to have good food, I'll recommend 2 books. One's by one of our instructors from Australia called Rocket Fuel on a Budget by Joe, J-O, Rushton, R-U-S-H-T-O-N. And another fantastic little book by a buddy of mine who wrote it many years ago, but it's still very good. It's called Real Food, Real Fast by Rico Cavaglia. Both of those books are extremely helpful. What is your overarching dream for yourself in your life? You know, what is it that you want to do so you can leave the world saying, I feel that sense of completion now?
When I vision myself, 10, 15 years from now, my dream, I vision myself being, I say like making a blender, putting Tony Robbins in there, Paul Chek in there, Les Brown, and some of my, like Nas, who's a very deep rapper, who brought so much great hope and information in my life. The impacts that each of you have made, and the way you go about your teaching, blending it up and doing that to the world.
Cool.
So you see how you're doing this by doing the podcast and sharing it with the world. And you see how Tony's traveling. He does these big speeches and Les Brown tells his story. I want to put all that in one piece. And when I do that, I want to be able to bring more help to people to where I'm able to afford to actually go and build schools and build water, a foundation for waters in schools and places that don't have these things.
Yes.
Because a lot of times I find, one thing that got me through my hard times as a kid is my dad used to always say, someone out there got it worse. And I used to always think he was lying until I actually watched documentaries of people in different parts of the, even in this country, but around the world that can't even get water, right? And my goal is to build schools with them or build something that's going to change that generation and the generations to come. But then I want to do it with my own hands with them. And then at nighttime, I want to be able to sit down around the campfire. And if I'm in a different country that doesn't speak English, have a translator, tell my story and inspire them.
Did you happen to listen to my podcast, The Garbage Warrior with Michael Reynolds?
I haven't.
You should.
The Garbage Warrior. I like that title.
I think The Garbage Warrior is the name of a documentary about him. I won't elaborate, but I'd say,
I'll check it out.
For a guy that's 29, you certainly have covered a lot of ground. And it's amazing that you were able to follow this inner guiding, the kind of the voice inside of you at an early age, and that you were able to realize that you had to use your mind to create what you wanted in your life and go do it. And it's also great that you were able to take the adversity of your life and find ways to create freedom from it. For example, when you hurt your back and you didn't get recruited to a pro team, which probably would have ruined you because it would have been the very wrong direction for your soul. But to take that opportunity and use that inspiration and motivation to say, how do I get my back better so I can at least be myself? And all the steps that you've made, it's just absolutely beautiful. And I'm grateful that we get to have this conversation so that as many people as possible realize that you can come from some pretty tough circumstances. And if you have a dream and you focus on what you want instead of what you don't want, and you as the Quakers say, pray and move your feet. In other words, don't just ask God to do it and sit and wait by the mailbox. You got to get out there and do your 50%. Walter Russell in his teachings says the universe operates on a 1-to-1 principle. For every step you move toward your dream, the universe moves it one step closer to you. So it's an equal opportunity employer of the universe.
I like that example.
Well, Nate, thank you, buddy.
Thank you.
Proud of you.
Thank you.
You're kicking some beautiful butt out there.
Thank you. I want to personally really thank you.
Well,
you
have by doing it.
I always refer your work, and I'm not gonna sidetrack into this, but I kind of get offended when people don't refer your work.
Yeah, it's just insecurities. People want to pretend they know everything. It's just souls that haven't figured out that love is a boomerang yet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's this moment right here is something I visioned. You don't understand. Like, I visioned this moment. I said you was gonna wear a green shirt. When there was times where I woke up and my mind wanted to play little games and wanted to give up, I visioned this. I visioned making videos. I visioned being behind the camera like Elliot did, but did it the way Nate wants to do it.
Yeah.
And to be here today, I'm kind of like, this is not going to hit me until I'm on the plane later, but I'm kind of like in this la-la land right now. Like, wow, Nate, this is amazing. I feel nothing but love going through my body, and I appreciate you, your family, the Chek Institute. I won't be where I am without that. Outside of being a coach, just being where I am. It was like a roadmap to my life.
Well, thank you.
So I really appreciate you. And
the beautiful thing is my roadmap is a message that says, create your own. That's my roadmap. Love yourself. Take care of yourself. Have a dream. Set realistically achievable goals. Wake up every day knowing you're contributing to the grand show and giving everybody else a chance to see what it looks like to really love. Because there's just so much of a lack of understanding of what love is and what we're all here to do with each other. I think it all boils down to doing what you love to do, so you are in the practice of making love every day. If you're not making love every day, then you're just working for money, and that kills people. Money without love is useless currency. In fact, it's worse than useless. It gets you killed. So I'll close with a song that Angie and I wrote, short and sweet. We sing it at the end of workshops quite often, and it goes like this. Well, I'm grateful for this life, and I'm grateful for this love, and I'm grateful for this moment with you right now. Aho, great spirit. Thank you, everybody. Hope you enjoyed the podcast. Nate's the real deal. Tell them where to find you.
BeGreatWithNate.com.
BeGreatWithNate.com.
That's my name on TikTok. My name is Nate. I want you to be great with me, so my name is Be Great with Nate.
Perfect. And thank you, Yo Elliot, for inspiring so many young people too, because many people have found me through Elliot Hulse. So thank you, Elliot, for living your dream. And thank you to all the sponsors of the podcast for making it possible. And thank you to each of you for anything you buy from the sponsors, because it supports the podcast. And when you buy from the sponsors of the podcast, you're actually putting money in the hands of people that support organic farming, regenerative farming, free-range animals, ethical, moral treatment of nature. And that means that your money is making the world a safer place for all the children in the future and the rest of us. And that's something we all need to think about right now. So, as we know, the political system is a sham. You want to vote? Vote with your money. Support life by investing in life. And thank you guys to all of you for joining us and hanging out with me and listening to podcasts with me. And if you have some truth, sing it, dance it, paint it, write it, share your love any way you can. The more we do that, the more soon we'll wake up, and then we can get past all the if we only could have or what if we, and we'll start being very efficient at creating a beautiful future for all the kids to come. So lots of love, everybody. See you next time.
Thank you for listening to Living 4D with Paul Chek and today's guest, Nate Ortiz. Connect with Nate on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube at Be Great with Nate, or visit his website at begreatwithnate.com, where you can get his fat loss and nutrition online course for free. Check out his podcast at begreatwithnate.com/podcast. You can find Paul on Instagram and TikTok at paul.chek, on Twitter at paulchek, or on his YouTube podcast channel, youtube.com/living4D with Paul Chek. You can watch more on Paul's blog at paulcheksblog.com or visit the Chek Institute site at chekinstitute.com to find Paul's e-learning courses, advanced training programs, and to learn more about the Chek Academy. You can read the show notes and find links to the resources mentioned in this episode at chekinstitute.com/podcast. And finally, if you enjoyed today's episode, please consider leaving us a 5-star rating and a warm review at the top of the show page on Spotify or at the bottom of the show page if you are listening on Apple Podcast.